Live from Deathray Studios in the sunny West Valley of Phoenix, it's Late Night with the Davey. Appearing on tonight's show, actor, writer, director, and producer Vincent DiSanti from WOMP, STOMP Films. And now, ladies and gentlemen, your host, Davey Deathray. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Davey Deathray here, back for another edition of Late Night with the Davey. How y'all doing on this lovely, lovely Wednesday evening? I hope everyone is doing well. I hope anyone who is out there in the Southeast is safe and their family is safe. And because it sounds like it's going to get pretty rowdy here later on this evening. Yeah, Wednesday, we have gone beyond the halfway mark of the week, folks. So it's time to celebrate a little bit. I hope you guys are having a great night. Let's say what's up to everyone in the chat. We've got one of our great channel members, Big Rod, hanging out here, says, hello, Davey, Vincent, and chat. On the subject of the poll, I hate to say it, but probably Halloween the way it's been going with the other IPs. Yeah, guys, Big Rod is talking about our poll that we've got here in the chat. The question is, which horror icon will return to the silver screen first? And we've got 14 votes. We're looking at 43% saying Michael Myers, 40% saying Michael, 33% saying Chucky, and 13% for Jason and Freddy. Tied for last place on that one, unfortunately. Yeah, we'll get into that a little bit here. Once we bring on our awesome guest, Vincent DiSanti, who will be with us here just within the next 5 minutes or so. Big Rod says, I'm so pumped for this. Watch Never Hike Alone and Dylan's New Nightmare again today in preparation. And Vin is saying good because there's going to be a quiz, Big Rod. So look out. We got Raymond Malaber, one of our great channel members here. What's happening, Raymond? Says it's the last couple hours before your birthday, Raymond. That is awesome. Happy early birthday. Maybe it'll happen while we're live tonight. We'll just see how long I end up blahing. Yeah, we'll see. Hell yeah. Let's see, who else do we got here? We got Eli Cortez, a channel member and a Death Squad mod. How are you doing, Eli? Great to see you. Always a pleasure. And we got D.A. Mac, another channel member, saying what's up and happy Wednesday. Eli's dropping the WOMP Stomp Films link there in the chat. Thank you so much for doing that, Eli. Yeah, we've got the links in the description below as well. So don't forget to check those out, especially for the folks that are watching this after the fact. Thank you for tuning in. Check out WOMP Stomp Films and leave us a comment. Let us know how we did. I'm still in the past right now at this point, so I don't know how we did. So let us know. Big Rod says I'd probably tested about 80%. Okay. Because he was at work. So he did get a coworker asking about Dylan's New Nightmare. So hopefully he'll check it out. Hey, word of mouth is huge for those kinds of projects. So good on you, Big Rod. Let's see. Who else do we have here? We've got Allie girl. What's happening, Allie? Always a pleasure to have you hanging out on Late Night with us. I know you have to wake up so damn early for work. So really do appreciate you having that extra cup of coffee and losing a couple hours of sleep there. Raymond is watching Last Drive-In, or is it Last or Lost Drive-In? I don't even know. That's how, I think it's Last, right? With Joe Bob and Darcy, Friday the 13th OG and 2 double feature. All right. That's a good 1-2 punch right there. Trisha McMasters, one of our great channel members. What's happening, Trisha? Great to see you here. We got Necro Mechanimal in the chat as well. How you doing, Necro? Robert the Wolfman, ow, ow, one of our great Death Squad mods and channel members as well. Lamontre Gillard, how you doing, Lamontre? Hope you are well, my bud. Hope work is going well for you also. We got Brooke Scarlett in the chat, another great channel member hanging with us here tonight. Antonis Andriotis, what's happening, Antonis? Always a pleasure to have you hanging with us as well. Boom, we got Erica in the chat hanging. How are you doing, Erica? Great to see you. Hope you are well. Sebastian, what's happening, Sebastian? We got Chris Snyder from Movie Misfits Video. What's happening, Chris? Hope you're having a good October so far, my guy. Let's see, who else do we have in here? Jamie Hart, the OG Death Squad mod. Hope you're having a great week so far, Jamie. Let's see, anybody else that I am missing? We got MAGA Cat. How are you doing, MAGA? Love seeing you pop up in the chat. We got Ray. Sup, Ray? How you doing? All right, everybody. You know, Ray, I think this might be your first time hanging out in the chat. Everybody make Ray feel welcome hanging out in the chat for the very, very first time. And if it's not your first time, my apologies. We got Liana Baby Rage hanging out. What's happening, Liana? One of our great channel members kicking it with us here tonight. Let's see here, just catching up with everyone. Man, the chat is very active, and you guys are so friendly, saying hello to everyone another, of course. We got Undead One. What's happening, Undead One? Great to see you hanging out over here. Undead One is one of the mods over at WOMP STOMP Films. So and a fantastic mod over there. So really great having you hang out with us here tonight. Boom, we got Happy Sanjo celebrating 2 months of channel membership. That's awesome, Happy. That is awesome, Koi. Really appreciate you, man. And you're always gifting memberships and, you know, throwing out super chats. It's really cool. Really appreciate that. We got Brett Patrick hanging out with us. How you doing, Brett? It's a pleasure having you in the chat with us. Boom, it is Ray's first time. Oh, yeah. And speaking of, oh, yeah, the AC just kicked on in the house, and it feels so good because it's still about 90 degrees out here in the desert. So it's pretty gnarly. Looks like Gavin is celebrating 1 month of membership. That is awesome, Gavin. So cool. So damn cool. And it looks like I'm finally caught up on the chat. Holy cow, we've got 22 people hanging out here with us. So let's take a look at the poll before we bring Vin on in. Guys, yeah, October is just nuts. I mean, last week we had Dave McCrae and Bruce Dale, you know, chatting about It's Me, Billy Chapter 2, which is releasing this Friday, most likely at about 9 a.m. Eastern. It'll be on Vimeo and, of course, here on YouTube as well. And yeah, today hanging out with Vincent DiSanti, it just doesn't get much cooler than that. And the whole rest of the month is jam-packed with really great guests. So if you're not subscribed already, you should hit that subscribe button. Go ahead and check out the channel. Hit the little notification bell. Why the hell not? I swear I don't post too much. It'll just help you keep up with all the live streams. I go live multiple times a week. And man, this October really packed the schedule. So we'll see how it all goes. But let's take a look at our poll before we bring Vin on in here. With 24 votes so far, which horror icon will return to the silver screen first? We're looking at Michael Myers with 38% of the 24 votes, Chucky with 29%, Jason Voorhees with 21%, and Freddy Krueger down there at a lowly 12%. Oh, I'm so sorry, Freddy. But I can't say that the poll is wrong. That's for damn sure. Let me make sure I didn't miss anybody else. It looks like we're still rolling with everybody. Dean Renner just jumped in, though. What's happening, Dean? Always great to see you. You're not even really late because I've just been doing the blah, blah, blah intro. So no worries at all, Dean. Really appreciate you joining us here. Ty thinks it's going to be Chucky at this rate. Welcome to the show here, Ty. Freddie and Jason. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. So yeah, guys, I guess this is the perfect time to go ahead and bring in our guest. You know, you guys know him. You know him from Never Hike Alone, Never Hike in the Snow, Never Hike Alone 2, Dylan's New Nightmare as a producer on there as well. Womp Stomp Films has just been killing it for years now. This is, you know, a guy I've probably known about for, gosh, 6 or 7 years or so, and had the pleasure of meeting Vin about, let's see here, it was about a year ago, maybe a little bit longer. Bumped into him at Gathering of the Ghouls with Cecil from the Horror Show channel as they were, you know, talking up Dylan's New Nightmare. And Cecil brought Vin in the interview. Originally, I was just going to interview Cecil, and then he's like, hey, Vin can jump on in. And I was like, Oh my God, the panic sweats really started setting in. But he was great. It was an awesome interview. A real pleasure to get to know him a little bit. I find folks that work not only just in the industry, but in the creative realm. It's just really fascinating. Really driven, passionate people. Vin is certainly that for sure. And yeah, guys, with no further hold up, let's go ahead and bring the man in, Vincent DiSanti. How you doing tonight, Vin?
Doing well, Dave. How you doing?
Doing all right. I'm just
Staying dry.
yeah, I'm sweating here. One less thing to sweat over though, Vin. Our Yankees pulled it
Yeah.
off. They beat the Royals.
Oh, they
So
did? Oh, good.
they did. So still
Good.
one more, you still got to win one more, but at least we're not in elimination mode.
I don't count anything out with the Yankees ever since the day that shall not be named.
Yeah. It's pretty rough. Sometimes I think to myself, I'm like, is Aaron Boone, is he an issue? I don't know. We'll see. Got one of the best,
We'll see.
rosters out there, but yeah, we'll see. But good news for both of us as Yankee fans. And yeah, how's everything been settling in there for you here this fall?
Everything's moving right along. We got the Never Hike Alone Final Cut campaign going right now on Kickstarter, which is about 75% to its goal. It's going to end on October 31st. So that's been fun. We just made the jump back to Kickstarter, and which has been, we were on Indiegogo for a while. We moved over to Kickstarter, whereas we were actually originally funded Never Hike Alone. We wanted to give it a shot because we hadn't been back there in a while, and we wanted to do some more experimentation on there. And I've been having a lot of fun. I mean, being back on Kickstarter is really, really, it's been a refresher for me, just kind of getting back into the swing of things. But I do like the way it works. So from a crowdfunding standpoint, it's been like it's been a nice sort of like return to form in a certain way with some of the things I wanted to do that you couldn't do on Indiegogo, which has been fun. Other than that, just been, working on projects, been working on the Never Hike Alone 2 Blu-rays. We're getting very close on those. I've been working on all the special features this week. There's just like little things I got to add in. I ended up deciding to put in, there were people who backed us on Never Hike Alone 2 to help support Ghost in the Fog, which is an animated version of Never Hike Alone that we're trying to get done through the Final Cut. But we did do a storyboard version of it, which we showed on the Ghost Files last week on the WOMP STOMP Films channel. So that's going to be included on the Blu-ray, but I wanted to include all of the backers that helped make that happen. There were about 100 people that backed that, specifically they got Ghost in the Fog credits through the previous campaign. So I've been putting that together. We're putting a table read that we did right before we started shooting that has like a different version of the script there, which is kind of cool. There's some like different lines. There's like different little pieces. It's us sitting around like reading it on Zoom. So I thought that, fans might like that. And then I'm bringing in the, we did an interview with the Merkins where Freddie interviewed Ghost Jason. For like one of the fundraising bits, and there was this great bit at the end with Tommy comes on and like crashes the stream, and then like Ghost Jason tries to go kill Freddy. It's like it was like one of my favorite moments of like going and leading up to Never Hike Alone 2. So I was like, I want to put this on too. So it's just been about collecting those things and putting it up there. I built all the menus this week, which has been really cool. So it's just nice to be making progress on it now that I've had the final version of the film with all the fixed credits, hoping to get that out to backers this fall. And then after that, we got work to do on the final cut, which, our editor, Mike Appy, will be working on that all through next year. Hopefully we can get Ghost in the Fog funded as well, and we can put that on the final cut Blu-ray disc. But while those things are in motion, because I've already written the outline for all that stuff, Mike knows what to do. I'll be watching, clips of it and stuff like that. I'll be watching reels and just kind of approving things. So we're moving on to some original projects, which we're really excited about. We have a project called Fragment, directed by Rob Vornkall. He's our online editor and color timer for Never Hike Alone 2, but he's a director himself. He wrote and directed this film. I was actually a first AD on it. We shot it, I want to say the summer before we finished raising the funds for Never Hike Alone. And Rob's been taking it on the festival circuit. He's got some really cool teasers coming out soon. So we'll be releasing those on the campaign. I have some original projects I'm going to be working with next year, some of my own, some other people that I'm collaborating with. So I'm just really excited to sort of, put Never Hike Alone to rest for a little bit, you know, get it ready for the, I'm excited about all the other stuff, but I'm excited to start stepping into some original stuff too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the, the next place where you can kind of flex everything you can do and, be paid proper for it and all that kind of fun stuff, you
Well,
know?
you know, it does depend on what's going to go first. Like we do have feature films. We want to do that. We want to go the investment route and get something into the theater. But there's also a lot of short films that I've written over the years that have sort of been sitting there collecting dust. So there's like animated
Mhm.
stuff like Ghost Chicken. There's live action stuff like EMT. I mean EFT. No, EMF. Oh my God. There is actually I actually did write an EMT short as well. There's all this stuff that we have, and there's sort of kind of, I've started to learn more ways that, you know, with crowdfunding is one thing, but I've started to learn more about film grants and applying for
Mhm.
those and getting those to increase your budget and sort of do that. So, you know, I'm hoping next year to sort of combine some of the film ideas we have, put them on crowdfunding, you know, maybe raise 10,000, maybe raise 15,000, and then add another 5,000 in grants and have these 20, you know, $30,000 short films that we can bring to festivals. Some of them
Mhm.
are kernels of, you know, feature film ideas. Others are just shorts to be shorts, which are still fun to do. You know, you can knock them out in a weekend, which would be really nice. But mostly just trying to think of opportunities to get the WOMP Stomp film team back together and do what we do best and have a lot of fun on set and create some stuff that hopefully horror fans want to watch.
Hell yeah. And speaking of like dusting stuff off, before we jumped in here, you had just found like, was it the original script of your first like iteration of Never Hike Alone, and then even some storyboards
Yeah,
that
so I
were
have this, like, I've had this thing ever since, like, from back in animation. Like I used to like doodle all over it.
Mhm.
And so you know, I've been moving my stuff around, and when I remembered that in here, the original storyboards for Never Hike Alone were in here, which I did these with like colored pencils. And it was a much different sort of idea where the original character, before it was going to be Andrew Lady, it was going to be someone who's actually named Kyle Klein, who you may recognize from the credits of Never Hike Alone because he's one of the producers. So we had that. You know, I found the original script from like the one that we never showed anybody when we did actually change it to Andrew, and then we sort of scrapped that version and started making the version of Never Hike Alone that everyone's seen. But I still have all the original stuff. I have the original shot list. I have all that stuff, and I don't know. It's just those things I like to carry around. Plus, it's like I was in like a big drawing phase at that time. So it's like all my best artwork is from that era. And I just don't draw that much anymore, which is kind of a bummer. But so I just try to keep everything because I don't know. I like going back and looking at the artwork. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, you got to include that as one of the bonus features on the Final Cut Blu-ray or something, right? Scan those pages.
You know, if I can, I don't know. I have a feeling the original version of Never Hike Alone was on a hard drive that died. And I
Mhm.
don't know if it still exists. If it does, I'm not sure where it is, but I do know that there may be an editorial project somewhere with it in there. So I think my sort of spelunking mission is to get into all these hard drives and see if I can find the original version that I exported, which is just brutally bad, and just put that as a and just put that as a bonus feature on that final disc. You know, we'll just
Yeah,
try
for
to put
sure.
anything on there that we can.
Yeah, that'll be great. What's happening? Cody Leach is hanging out in the
Oh
chat. How
my
you doing,
God,
Cody? Stop the
Cody.
presses, everyone. Cody Leach is hanging out. Hell yeah. Thank you for joining us, Cody. Really cool. Yeah, so every I keep on coming on here every time they announce like quote unquote news about the Crystal Lake TV show. I hop on here and I'm just sort of like it's one of those things like I'm honest with my audience. It's like I'm not going to review every movie. I'll review movies if I happen to be like passionate about it. I'm not going to cover every bit of horror news, but if I'm passionate about it or have something to say, I'll cover it. And the Friday the 13th thing just drives me a little bit nuts. And sometimes it's like, I need you to be my compass because you've got the experience from, the industry experience and then also
Mhm.
the mega fan experience. And just you're kind of in the know with everything. And it's one of those things
Yeah.
where I get like, I'm like trying to stay positive, but it seems like every time we get news, it just keeps on pushing these projects back. Everyone has questions about whether or not a film's going to happen, yada, yada, yada. And I actually used some of your tweets in my last video to show a differing perspective.
Oh no.
So no, it was really great stuff. It was just
Oh.
basically about Sean and where he stands as far as the film rights go.
Yeah.
You know, but how confident are you? It sounds like they're aiming for, you know, this time next year to release or, you know, at least start rolling out the Crystal Lake TV show. How confident are you that this project is going to, you know, start moving smoothly after 2 years of, you know, false start after false start?
You know, the longer I've thought about it, right now I'm really 50-50 on it, because when Peacock originally purchased the series, they purchased it from Brian Fuller. They were purchasing a Brian Fuller series with Brian Fuller bringing his name onto it, you know, bringing that Hannibal lore, like, you know, bringing that Hannibal kind of crowd with him, that, you know, that the expectations of what was going to happen. And, you know, it's nothing against the new showrunner, but I think right now it really is a proving ground. You know, it's no longer a guaranteed thing. And I think with Brian, when I talked to the people on the inside of it, you know, it really came down to budget. And I think that was pretty much out there in the know.
Gotcha.
With, you know, what they released in the articles and things like that. But it came down to Brian had a vision. He wanted to see that vision through, and he wasn't going to compromise on, you know, taking steps back that wasn't going to allow him to like create the show he wanted to create. And if he couldn't create that show, it wasn't worth it for him, and he moved on. He loves Friday the 13th. And I think the unfortunate thing is that, like, you know, Amy Steele was going to be on the show. Adrian King was going to be on the show. You know, and they, you know, they're no longer, you know, it's up in the air. No one's called them or told them what's going on. In fact, I was on Twitter today. And in fact, we're very brave for going up against Joe Bob watching Friday the 13th part 1 and 2 tonight on AMC. But Darcy had posted something where she was posting behind the scenes of like Joe Bob and Adrian talking. I guess that's the first time they ever met, but you heard her talking about it, saying like, you know, Brian was involved. He was bringing me in. I was going to play a role. And now, you know, they brought someone new in, and I don't know what's going on. And so, you know, I'm going to be optimistic, you know, with what Sean said. You know, he's hearing like things floating from the rooms, but he's not really like, he's sort of been excommunicated from what I understand. Everything that I've heard is that like Sean is on his own island. Like he still has, you know, some power with his pen, that he has to sign things. He has to approve things, because if he doesn't, he's not going to get paid. But he's not really on the ground floor of like what they're coming up with to do. It's really fallen into the hands of Robert Barsimian and Mark Tobleroff, who are the people in the two courts. So Mark Tobleroff is the lawyer who represents Victor Miller. Robert Barsimian is sort of the used to be the silent partner in Horror Inc. when Sean was the head of it. But with the way everything went down with the lawsuit, and something must have gone wrong with the paperwork, I'm guessing here, but I'm assuming that Barsimian, who's not the original Barsimian who started Horror Inc., it was his father, it's the son. He's inherited it. He's got more control now. He partnered with Tobleroff to create the Crystal Lake series. They've come together to kind of share the rights, but Sean still has say. Victor still has say, but they're both sort of sitting on the outside, not really participating in the actual executive inner workings of the people that are running the Jason universe. And honestly, like, as of Friday the 13th, you know, on that subject, like, listen, I'm trying to be optimistic. Nobody wants more Friday the 13th than I do. I'm really excited about them at the, you know, any opportunity they have to put Friday the 13th in any medium, whether it's a film, a game, TV, you know, artwork, comics, books. Like, it's just good for the brand. I want the brand to live on and survive. You know, as a fan, just, you know, watching what they're doing, I'm just not super impressed with anything I've seen so far. I've heard a lot of like promises and a lot of things that we thought we were going to get, like they announced, they teased a game, but we haven't heard anything about that yet. You know, they teased the TV show, it's got pushed back, and we really haven't heard firm details. And really what I was trying to get across to people was like, until you hear it from like the world of A24 or Peacock, you can't trust anything you hear. Like, even what I'm saying, like, I may have, you know, information that's just not right. I'm just saying, like, if it's not from A24 or Peacock, it's not true. You know, you just got to kind of go it that way. And the unfortunate thing is this is a continuation of the type of treatment for Friday the 13th that created Never Hike Alone in the first place. Because I was here in 2017 waiting for another movie to come out, and they had just canceled the third one by the time we were halfway through Never Hike Alone. So, you know, I can understand that fans are just super frustrated, but I also think they're very jaded and cynical now, because you see just a lot of them say, you know, when I read comments about Crystal Lake, I see a lot of like, oh, I don't even want a TV show. Who cares about Pamela? Just give me a movie with Jason in it. And it's like,
Sure.
you know, I think that like that's a very narrow-minded view for what Friday the 13th is. I think that the TV series, it allows you to kind of dive into some questions that fans have had for 40, you know, for the 40 years that the franchise has been in existence.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine. I don't think that interferes with them doing movies. I think what interferes with them doing movies is the rights issues. They would have a movie out in development and going out right now if there weren't still rights issues with everybody having to agree. The fact that New Line actually owns the title Friday the 13th. You have, you know, Sean owns these characters in these markets, and Victor owns these characters in these markets, and Barsimian owns these characters in these markets, and they all have to come together and write a deal where they all make money, and then they got to go make a movie. So
Yeah.
it just makes it expensive, like right off the top. And if you think about like the way that Halloween came together in the last like sort of trilogy, was that, you know, the first movie was 10 million, and then I think it went what to like 15 and then 20 or 25. And so
Yeah.
studios really aren't jumping at the like chomping at the bit to get to 25 to 50 million dollar movies anymore, because they're not as profitable as they used to be, especially in the theaters. Like they want to make the $1 to $5 million movies, or they want to make 100 to 150 million dollar movies that are meant to make $1 billion. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
Friday the 13th has sort of got an identity issue where it needs to either go back to its roots, or somebody needs to go all in on it. And it's like nobody's really that passionate about it, even within their own circles, I think, to say like, here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to go. I think they're all just waiting for somebody to have the idea to rally around, but that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, it seems like one of the things I likened it to in one of those, you know, news videos was it's like being a fan of a sports team that has like a really frustratingly bad owner, and you have
Like the
you're just
Jets.
like, yeah, you're like, they can't hire a good GM. The GM can't hire a good coach. We're always botching the draft. Like every year it's this could be the year where we start to build something, and then 2 years later we're rebuilding again. And it sort of feels like that with Friday the 13th, a lesser extent Freddy, just because there's just like silence there with Freddy, so it doesn't feel like, you know, something is going on. But yeah, it seems like with Friday the 13th, the people that could make something happen are just sort of blasé about it. Like we're the ones that care. They're the ones that are like, yeah, that's cool, you care. Like we're rich anyway, and we don't see a reason why we should do this.
Yeah,
And
they
you
look
think
at it
that,
from a standpoint of, how is this going to make us money? But they've already
sure,
spent so much time and effort in court getting these rights.
yeah,
So I think that like that's the one thing you can at least put your stamp on, is that they spent all that time getting the rights. So now they're going to want to do something with them, but maybe they're riding the fact that there are, you know, it plays everywhere. You know what I mean? It's Friday the 13th
yeah,
isn't going to stop being played. Everybody still watches the movie. So maybe there are residuals that everyone's going to start collecting. You know what I mean? So like when they do another round of toys, or, you know, they sell whatever they sell with it, whether it be masks or, you know, whatever
I
else
mean,
they come up with. And
even the 4K releases that are all being announced, there's been like 3 or
Yes.
4 4Ks announced within the last, you know, week or two. So, you know,
And
it
that's
seems like
probably,
they're just trying to go for like, well, what can make us money while we're waiting for a couple other things to gestate. And you know, I think you like one of the things that I like about, you know, the way that you think about Friday the 13th is, you know, a lot of people will just poo-poo the Pamela thing. I'll admit that I just don't really think about her very often. But you've really kind of brought it to the forefront of my mind that like Pamela's the reason for the season. She's like the whole that, you know, she's for Jason being like a revenant, you know, monster. It's all because of Pamela. And so I do
yeah.
think that with the TV show, they've got a great opportunity to not only like dive into that aspect of Jason's life, like the family life and all that stuff, but really in a series that at the beginning has like kind of a muddled timeline, they could essentially set the timeline, like reset it, set it correctly with Jason starting out as a kid, and then you could launch into a series of movies where he is the main villain, but the TV show is sort of like, you know,
The
laid that
origin story.
foundation.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, it's sort of like what we did with Never Hike in the Snow. It lays this foundation for what leads into Never Hike Alone 2 that also coincides with Never Hike Alone. And, you know, being able to, what's up, Kate?
Mhm, mhm.
What what the TV show would allow us to do is really sort of say, okay, pick a lane. Did Jason drown or did Jason survive?
Yeah.
And you could write a story about either one. And as long as you pick a lane, you stick to it, and then you stick to a logic track that allows you to remain grounded enough. Like, obviously, Jason's going to survive some stuff. Obviously, Jason is going to do something interesting. But like, if he's a survivor, then that's a different form of storytelling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the things he has to do to survive are going to be different. If he's a ghoul that rises from the bottom of the lake, you know, and is a revenant, he's going to operate in a very different way. But one thing that was really cool is I actually like, one thing I don't think I've said too publicly yet. I've said it a couple of times, but I did get to interview for the Crystal Lake TV show. I met with Brian Fuller. I met with Kevin Lafferty, who is going to be the line producer. And I know what 4 seasons were going to be. Like, I actually know the entire span of what Brian was going to do. And, you know, I know other people out there who wrote scripts and all these different things, but Brian just basically pitched to me, and we just hashed back and forth for Friday the 13th for like an hour and a half. And one thing that we both agreed on was that, like, no matter what, Pamela is like the fulcrum point. Like, it's the relationship between mother and son that drives the entire relationship through everything that happens. Like, separating them is like the worst thing that happens to this town. And that is sort of, and, you know, he talked about like her having this sense of like making them pay. And I loved his approach to it. And I was really looking forward to seeing his take on it. I know that, like, you know, some of the other details that released that I didn't even know about from our conversation. He never talked about like the hour-long chase, you know, episode or anything like that in our conversation, but he did lay out what the groundwork was. The groundwork was just to follow Pamela season 1. Seasons 2, 3, and 4 were about Jason. And you were going to get full-on Jason action for 3 seasons. And his idea was do 4 seasons in a movie.
Yeah.
Like, let me take him to this point. Let me leave him here. And then it's up to you guys to keep them going and just figure out what you want to do in the films. And I was like, that'd be a great time to bring me in. I'm really good at like at this shit. But it was cool. And, you know, and let me get it straight. Like, I'm not saying I was coming on as a director. I was going to work in like the AD department as probably like a PA. And if I could pull my thing, I would have been cast PA. That would have been like what I would have wanted to do, or be a key and just work right under, you know, the DP and kind of do that stuff. But I would have done anything they would ask me to do just because I wanted to work on a Friday the 13th film. And, you know, I got really close. I haven't heard back from A24 or anybody since, because they've all been in the rebuilding mode, and I don't know what the plan is. If you ask me, they're going to send the new showrunner off to write all winter, because he's going to need to turn something in, and then they're going to need to break that down. And I imagine, like Sean talked about them shooting in Australia, but that would be really rushing it. I would see them sticking to shooting in Toronto, but just spending the winter prepping, and then going in the spring, shooting spring to summer, and then they would have their product by October if that was their release, their release window. It would be interesting. But Jason's got a birthday coming up next year. We have 6/13/25. That's Jason's, I think, 76th or 74th birthday. So, you know, it's a big date. So maybe they aim for that. Who knows? But I mean, that's the thing. Like, we just had a Friday the 13th come and go. Jason Universe didn't do anything.
Nothing.
Just, hey, Friday the 13th streaming on Paramount. It's like, yeah, we know. What do you got? What have you made? Like, what have you been working on over there? What are you guys doing? Like, you released a pin for Comic-Con. Like,
we have a new Fortnite, you know, costume for Jason to wear.
That would be that would be a big announcement, because they're only in that like they're in that like Warner Brothers fight game. But if they announce a new skin for Fortnite, which they partnered with Fortnite, or they followed Fortnite on you know, Twitter, got everybody excited. That would give, you know, that just introduces new fans to Jason. It gets them involved in the franchise, and then you got to give them a movie. You got to give them something to watch.
Yeah, I was disappointed that even after, like, with the last Friday the 13th in September, I was like, man, they could have at least put out like some sort of like poster or something. Like, if you already know what this guy's idea is, like, they really could have been like,
no, hey, I doubt they. I mean, I would guarantee that all that stuff is still in progress. I don't know, like, if they haven't announced casting, if they haven't announced any of that stuff yet, I mean, I would really they're in really early stages and nothing's ready to be seen. Nothing will be ready to be seen until next year.
I mean, even you could go so simple in teaser with a poster, something, just an
Even if they
outline
had a
of something,
mask, they really
Yeah.
like that's where you got to start. You got to start with the mask. You know what I mean? Or you got to start with your Pamela, and you
Yeah.
got to give people a little tease about what they're going to see. But like I said, like until that show is greenlit to shoot, they're not going to commit any money to making anything. They're not going to hire, effects artists. They're not going to hire a production designer. Like these are all things that need to be done. Like once Brian left, that was a complete rebuild of the staff, under the A24. Like A24 is producing, but they had to put a new producing producer on it. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all comes together. I'm hoping for the best. But it's you just got to try to stay positive.
Do you think that A24, like, were they just in over their heads a little bit going with Brian Fuller? Did they not have the right conversations with him? Like, it seems like they should, hold a little bit, like, be a little bit responsible just for the restart here,
Well, I mean, I don't think A24 is over their heads at all. They're one of the leading companies in the industry. So they know what they're doing. They know who they're dealing with. I think that maybe it came down to once they started looking at the pages, like you have to understand, like the writer strike and the SAG strike really screwed up what was going on. Like Brian and the writers went and wrote pages, they got done. Then the strike hit, nobody got paid. And then they came back and they had to get people paid. And then they had to break down these scripts and they had to say, okay, how much are these scripts actually going to cost? What is Brian's actual vision? What is the number that's going to go on the page? And maybe Brian was writing to a certain number and just writing to be like, I'm just going to write and put out what's out there. And then that breaks down. And let's say, what they say it was going to be like $24 million or something like that for the entire series. And they go, well, we were thinking about spending 12. And so now you got to look at your script and like scrape that down to 12. And that means that like, the type of actors you can go after and, the types of salaries that everyone's going to have and how many people are going to be attached to this thing. It really can kind of throw everything into a tailspin. And if it was going to affect the vision or if it was going to keep him from doing what he wanted to do, then it was his right to step away. And now somebody else has to come in and understand that, okay, I have to make it fit in this budget. And now it's going to be a matter of, what do they do? Now, what is that film? Now, what does that show look like too? And so that's the big question is now because Brian definitely has like a look and a vision. So what is this new look and vision going to be? And what's the tone going to be? You know what I mean? I think my biggest fear is it falling into like the sci-fi CW sort of level of execution. Like it's a Lewis and Clark, not a Lewis and Clark, but with Superman and Lewis, like, yeah, it's a nice show, but it has those CW sort of like feel
little
to
too
it.
Bubblegummy.
A little too bubblegummy, a little too, just not, it's not like raw and real. And I really hope it remains in that tone.
Yeah. Do you think even by December 13th, we've got another Friday the 13th? Do you think they would even tease anything at that point?
It would be smart of them to do that. I mean, it would be very smart of them to do it if they can pull it off. If they feel like they're confident in a product and they have something that they can show, that's the time to do it, to get people excited and to tell them to look out for June 13th. You know what I mean? Like we're coming on June 13th. Like they should release something in December that says we're coming. And then next June 13th, they should launch that trailer. They should have a trailer. And if they don't have a trailer by June 13th next year, and we're still not hearing anything by next spring, I'm going to really be worried.
Yeah, man, we'll see. It has been intriguing just to follow it because it is its own soap opera. You could make a movie about just the rights issues. Like
really,
you could have like a HBO Films, like they do the dive into like behind the scenes kind of thing.
Oh, it's gonna be like the Aaron Hernandez story they're doing right now. Ryan Murphy's gonna produce it. It's gonna be like super dramatized, like
the Menendez brothers.
Oh my god, yeah.
Now, Pilaf Ross asks, does anyone have a favorite Jason costume from the franchise? What's your favorite Jason look, Vin?
The dream Jason from part 5. I feel like that is the perfect Jason. Like it's a perfect culmination of like Ted White post like the final scene. And then it's just him in that moment. But like him standing, like when Tom Morga is standing under the tree outside Tommy's window with that double-bladed axe, or when he's standing in the mirror behind him, those two shots I think are some of the coolest shots of Jason I've ever seen. And the costume is perfect. You know, there's no extra accoutrement. Like I love part 6. Not a big fan of the gloves or the utility belt. And 7's really cool too. But with the face off, I didn't really love the face. Like 7's really cool. And that the dream sequence, I would say.
And then he's still got what in part 4, it's just a button-up shirt and pants.
Yeah,
right?
It's the Sears
like
work shirt and a pair of Dickies. Yeah.
Nice.
Pretty simple, just simple stuff.
That's like what I wore from like age 19 to 29, pretty much. All right. And let's see here. Lou War says, people want a Freddy versus Jason 2. I don't see how that could happen or what more they could do. What do you think about Freddy versus Jason 2?
I mean, there's definitely a continuation there. You have Freddy winking at the end of the movie. And the combination of Freddy manipulating Jason is a great story tool. And I think that can be used to do many different things. Like Freddy could try to do this again. He could try to motivate him in a different way. And that could come back. There's also the idea that we've been kicking around about like the Dylan's New Nightmare Freddy versus the Ghost Jason and putting it in that world. Because I think we've already established and confirmed that, in the world of Dylan's New Nightmare, Ghost Jason is real. Like I think that's the world where Friday the 13th exists. And then you have the Nightmare on Elm Streets and then the Dream Demon or whatever that thing, the entity exists in that world.
I would love to see that. Like you and Dave just like going at it. I
just hope that it would be darker
than what they did with the original Freddy.
Yeah, with Jason. Like the original Freddy versus Jason was like a Scooby-Doo movie.
Sure.
And I wish I hope that like if they ever do make another one or if we ever make one, we'll definitely make it dark. But I think that like that was the one thing I think most fans were missing was that like it was a bubblegum movie. It was a $50 million like it's got to appeal to everybody movie. And so it sort of had that Scooby-Doo vibe. It had definitely that like late 90s, early 2000s, like I Know What You Did Last Summer, but like even more campier.
Yeah, Ronnie Yu, he also did Bride of Chucky, and it definitely, those two movies feel very akin to one another. There's a lot of blue light. It's a very slick looking movie, heavy emphasis on like modern pop music and like rock music and this as the soundtrack, and characters that are like ultimately pretty forgettable, unfortunately. I think
they're
Monica,
very cliche. Yeah,
like Monica Keena in Freddy versus Jason, she's totally gorgeous and all that, but the performances leave a little something, I think, in that movie to be desired.
Yeah, they got Kelly Rowland in the movie, so there's like a stunt cast, and it's like, oh my god. Like,
even like I'll say this, like even Ken Kurtzinger, like I didn't need Jason to be like so monstrously bigger than Freddy. Like I wouldn't have minded if they were relatively comparable, just because Jason's so brutal. So if you had kept Kane or just brought in somebody that was just sort of in between, there's something about Jason's look in that movie that doesn't really do it for me, unfortunately.
No, I'm not a big fan. I call it the hobo look. He looks like a big hobo. He's like the jacket's really big. In fact, that's sort of like one of the things that led me to doing Ghost Jason was like I was always like, it's not a bad look, the jacket and the sweater underneath. I was like, you just need to like take the bulk down. Like there's too much shit there. Same thing with 2009. There was just too much stuff. It was like, part 3, 4, 5 look of Jason. It was simple. It was elegant. It was, it wasn't over the top. It was just enough. And the focus was the hockey mask. Like your focus was always looking at the face. You didn't really worry about what was on the body. And so when we were doing Ghost Jason, it was like, I want to do the jacket because the jacket does add a little bit of bulk. Like it makes it look a little bit bigger. And I'm kind of a slender guy. So we had that, but it was like, if you just had it look like the work shirt, which was an M65 jacket with gutted, so it didn't have any lining and it wasn't thick, it sat on my body like a work shirt, but it had all the fun stuff where like, when I turn and fight and when Brian would be in costume and he'd be doing stuff like, the jacket would whip out and kind of give you movement and look flowy. And it did all those nice things, but it was also contoured to the body. So Jason always had a silhouette. And I think that's one of the problems I have with Freddy versus Jason in 2009 is that Jason's costume is so big, his silhouette becomes a blur, like a big blob. Like he's just one big blob with a head, versus like a man's body with that mask really being prominent and sticking out. And that was sort of the goal, to like refine that look for something that I thought was a little bit more effective.
Yeah, it's like the Matt Groening school of thought where every character should be recognizable just within silhouette. It's a good kind of rule of thumb that he sort of has for the projects that, he put together. And it's something that, like, when I heard it, I was like, wow, that never would have occurred to me. But that's a brilliant idea of like why these characters stand out to me so much. And yeah, I mean, I'm one of those, I am an 09 defender. I don't love every single thing about it. But the things that work for me, I do think that, it has a lot of those Friday the 13th elements. Like, and I do think Derek Mears, it's unfortunate we didn't get at least one more go with him as Jason, because I loved his size. I did like the kind of almost like Victorian look, like when he's standing on top of the house and the big lights behind him. And, there's just some great shots in that movie where you're like, wow, this does feel, it's funny because it feels simultaneously brutal. And it's got the WB element that you had mentioned, or the CW, a bunch of TV actors.
I think with my biggest issue with that is that the kids in that movie really don't have anything to do. They're all just like waiting around to die. And it was just sort of, I don't know. I just wasn't pulled in by that movie. I was just sort of like bored. And then Jason would show up, and I didn't really love the look. I thought that Derek did a great job. I just thought that I was like, Derek already has the natural size. Why are you bulking him up even more? But it's a Michael Bay movie, so they're going to go over the top. Like, look what they did with Ninja Turtles. You know what I mean? It's like,
oh my gosh,
the designs were so over the top, and like I call it over stylized and over designed. And, going back to your point about Matt Groening, is that like, that's where I actually learned that technique, not from Matt, but just, I spent all that time in animation. That's one of the things we always talked about. We always talked about when we went into character design meetings, I would listen to the production designer, the directors, and everybody talk about character design and silhouettes and how important they are to like really create a solid character that you can understand. Like, because it had to do with the animation too, because if a character didn't have a proper silhouette, they couldn't be animated correctly either. And so it helps translate in the acting. It allows the body to act. It allows when I was able to be in the Ghost Jason costume, everything that I did in an emotional standpoint with my body showed through. If I had too much stuff on, it doesn't show through as much. You have to overdo it. And that's like, if you ever watch the Killer Cut of 09, you see like Jason getting mad in his lair and kicking things and stuff like that. And I was just like, he looks so goofy doing that with all that shit he's wearing. And like,
take off your coat. He should do like a Mr. Rogers thing where he comes in, he like changes shoes, he puts on like a different sweater or something.
He just gets nice and comfy in the tunnels.
I did like that aspect of him. Like, I guess I didn't mind because we know so much about Jason, through just the lore that they built up. I kind of liked seeing him as, I've always described it as like, he's like a spider, Camp Crystal Lake is his web. And anyone that like trips one of those wires, he's even got trap doors like all over the place. I just thought that was sort of interesting. And I felt like he was the slasher to do that with. Whereas like, I don't want to see that from Michael. I want as much like, mystery as possible with Michael. But I think one of the biggest things that I heard you say one time where I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a great point, in regards to 09, is the music. I know that like one time you brought that up in a stream and I was like, holy shit, Vin's totally right. Like, I can't even recall the music. So it definitely isn't something that reminds me of the older movies, or else I would remember that. And maybe, the score could have done something that, like you said, the movie didn't really pull you in with the characters. It's like, even the score, I think, is another opportunity.
The score was like, it was very like, it was like electronic, and it's like, there was like a lot of drones, and stuff like that. And I just, there was like a little bit of a theme, but I didn't fall in love with it. And I think for me, I just had such high expectations for it. And I love the fact that they wanted to make Jason like a First Blood Rambo Jason. And that, there was this concept that like, he was in the camp, he was just protecting his territory. And if you came into his territory, he would do something to you. And then they would have a scene where like kids were on a boat, just going down the lake, and then he would just randomly kill somebody in public and then dart back into the woods. And it felt like, all right, now Jason's asking for trouble, you know, and that
in
goes
broad
against
daylight.
in broad daylight. And now this is,
Yeah.
and like, and I know it's like, hey, it's a horror movie, let it go. But I thought that like, that's such a simple thing to do, where like they could have gone up to shore and gone into the camp, or gone to the dock, or like gone to the camp and like done something there that would have drawn him out. And it's things like that where I was like, you know, why is he going to a farm, a working farm in the middle of the day to steal stuff? Why isn't he doing that stuff at night? You know, I found that like, you know, coming up with an idea for him to find the mask is such an iconic moment, you know, like to recreate, like, you know what I mean? Like this is the thing. This is what the whole series is built on, the fact that he wears this mask. Like if they put a hockey mask on him in part 3, who knows if Friday the 13th continues to go on? Like you got to have like some type of thought that goes into this mask scene, and him just like finding it in a bucket randomly. I was like, I felt like I was being pissed on. I was just being like, yeah, fuck you, idiot. Like this is how he gets the mask. He's going to look at himself in the mirror and tilt his head. It's like,
well, and it's like he sees some little small sliver of it too. It's like, how would you even know what it is? And it happens, of course, in you know, in true like remake fashion. It happens after a really odd like moment where the hillbilly guy is like groping
groping a mannequin. Yeah, and again, that was the sort of humor.
It took his virginity and stuff.
Yeah, and like that was like the humor in the film. It was just it wasn't funny. Like that scene wasn't funny, and then him finding the mask was sort of like a clunky way into it, and then it sort of kind of goes from there. And like what Raymond's saying, the first 20 minutes, you know, it being solid, like it does get off to a good start. The sack looks great. You know, with the sack, it's a great improvement over the overalls and the big dopey sack that he wears in part 2. I mean, Jason is just not intimidating in part 2 at all. And it's insane how Steve Miner was actually able to make him scary in certain scenes, even though he looks so ridiculous. In 2009, it looks great. My problem with the first 20 minutes is you can't see anything. You can't see him in the first shot. You can't see what the kill is. And then they cut away. And then I thought the scene where like the machetes are coming up, that was really cool. The chase, all that stuff. And you know, it was a fun little intro, but then like for some reason, it just sort of like the film just peters out from there.
Yeah. And I think you're right, Ali. I think the mannequin's name is Darla.
Yeah.
Hey, I recognize that guy from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He plays like the rapper that D dates for like one episode. That's I always think of that show whenever I watch Friday the 13th 09.
They use him a lot in the Platinum Dunes movies. Like he's like a good, like he's like one of the favorites of Brad Fuller and Andrew Forum, the guys who run that production company.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's you know, it's a shame we haven't seen anything from you know, from our guy Jason since then, you know, from the studio folk. But man, you know, what you and your crew have done over there at WOMP Stomp has been it's just like breathed new life into the fandom, I think. And you know, it's opened up there was a chat like way earlier. I think it's just opened people's minds to like the perception that, you know, what a fan film can be. And that's why I called you the OG in my Instagram post, because, you know, fan films existed before, but especially within the horror community, I think, you know, what you and Womp Stomp have done, it raised the bar to this level where like other people were like, oh my God, like we can reach that. Like this is something that's like possible. So I think that's like one of the, you know, awesomest things, like best things about, you know, you and all of your creative work and your passion is that it's helped other people realize that they can, you know, reach those heights too. And then it becomes a fun little thing where it's like, it goes back and forth. And it seems like each fan film just gets like more and more professional. And it's really inspiring and encouraging to see. So yeah, I mean, I guess I just said that all just to say thank you for keeping Jason alive for all of us Friday the 13th fans, man.
Yeah, it wasn't like that wasn't the goal at the beginning. The goal was like, honestly, my original intention, like if I could single it down, it was like I just wanted to give Friday the 13th fans a reason to celebrate on Friday the 13th because it had been a while. And I, you know, my own personal sort of like needing something from the franchise started with Jason Goes to Hell. like ever since 1993, I've been like, I need something to like wash that out of my brain. And I need a better movie to come along and give me a better ending that the series deserves. Cause we need something better than that. And like, I've since become friends with Adam Marcus. We've talked about it. And I can only say that because I know what his original version of Jason Goes to Hell was going to be. And like, I would have loved that movie. Like he pitched it to me. I was like, that's the exact movie I wanted to see. He goes, well, yeah, well, Sean wouldn't let me make it. And, I made what I could. I was a 20-something-year-old kid and, I went for it and, it is what it is. And, I love what I did and all of that stuff. And, so I respect him like hell because I mean, he just had this opportunity to go and make it and he did the best he could. And on its own, it's its own movie. But as a fan, I was like, okay, but I do really need to get that ending though. And I never really felt like anything I got from the studios was really kind of satisfying. And then they were canceling projects left and right. And, I just wanted to make something. I just wanted to make something cool. I wanted to, build my own repertoire as a director and a creator and all that type of stuff. But I think it was really cool. Like the whole experience of making the film and then watching it kind of go viral and it hit all the trades. And then, there were a couple people that were also doing it around the same time I was. Never Hike Alone was just the first one out of the box, but it set a high standard. Like we set a high standard for ourselves. Like everyone on that crew sort of said like, this is what we're shooting for as far as like look as far as a cinematic film. So we had a very good DP, Christopher Thellis, who was like, I'm going to make this thing look like a feature film. And he did. And, with the help of JD Martz, who was the co-DP, who helped with a lot of the GoPro and drone and action camera stuff. And I said, okay, that's great. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring story to it. Like, we're going to make this a good story. Like, it's going to be an interesting trip with this character, and we're just going to make it engaging. And, we were lucky enough. I was lucky enough to be friends with Andrew. He was the perfect host for the film. And so I think what happened was it exceeded a lot of people's expectations because it brought in found footage. It didn't have a lot of it had no body count. And, it's a one-on-one film. So it's not like multiple people running around. It's not your typical Friday the 13th film. But what I wanted to show was that like Friday the 13th isn't the formula. Friday the 13th is Jason. Friday the 13th is the character. So put the character in situations and you can put him in other movies. Like, Never Hike Alone is the same sort of formulaic film as you would see for 127 Hours of The Martian. I just took that concept and rewrote it in a way that was built for Friday the 13th and how it would be for someone who was documenting with a camera to go out and interact with Jason and how that would play out. What happened after that, with people, the other filmmakers who were making stuff at the time have said this to me since then, so I don't mind saying it. But they were like, yeah, as soon as that came out, like everything we were thinking about doing, we just threw in the trash and knew that we had to start over again because you set this bar that all of a sudden, like, we had to try and meet that. And so what was cool is you had a lot of people who were making films already who were like, okay, I'm going to try even harder now because if I want people to notice me, I have to be as good as that. And I think a lot of other people saw that and said, that looks like a lot of fun. I'm going to do it too. And you watched I think that there was The Man in the Lake. There was Jason Returns from Hell or Jason in Hell, something like that. There's a few decent fan films between 2003 and 2011 that came out that were like shot on DV cameras that don't look cinematic at all. What most people think of when they think of a fan film. And that's no slight to those filmmakers because those are the only tools that they had at the time because cinematic cameras were hundreds of thousands of dollars and out of their reach. They had cool stories, they had cool things, but they didn't have the production value that you could get. In 2017, we had the cameras that had the production value. We were just the first ones to sort of put that formula together. And then a lot of people were able to take their own DSLRs and they all, there's cinematographers from all over the country and world that sort of have enough friends and enough equipment to go build their own projects. And so you had things of all different levels, but what you had, which I really think is the most special thing, was you had a community participating within its own franchise. They weren't waiting for the studios to create something for them. We were participating and doing it all ourselves. And I think that that's really the special sort of outcome of all of this is that for 5 or 6 years, well, 8 years really, between 2016 to now, fan films took over Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th had nothing to offer fans, albeit that the video game, which was also fan created. Gun Media was a bunch of fans who were lucky enough to hook up with Sean and get that game out. And we're lucky to get it. for as long as we did. And it's unfortunate it still doesn't exist as it did. But, you know, if you look at that, I mean, really 2016 to 2025, when they go back to rewrite Crystal Lake Memories, that should be called the fan era. The era where the fans took over and they contributed to the franchise. And hopefully whatever comes next is something that is done with the same amount of passion, because no matter whether, you know, a fan film is like a Never Hike Alone, where it feels cinematic, you could watch this thing on YouTube and feel like you could watch it on Netflix, that's great. If it's something that like really is kind of like run and gun and like only has so much to it, like I've seen a couple like that have been brilliant. Like there was one from South Africa that didn't have the greatest production value, but it had a great story and it had great scenes and it had good camera work. And it was engaging, and I was brought into it. And so I think that like you see the passion kind of come out of it. You see the passion come out in these projects and people just getting together. One of the cool things about it, I think, was it's like, you know, we got to work with Tom Matthews. You know, he was a special surprise in Never Hike Alone 1. And then, you know, all of a sudden other alumni saw what Tom did and they were like, oh, and other people saw that we worked with Tom and they were like, oh, so they reached out to their favorite Friday the 13th alumni and they started working with them. And so you have alumni participating with fans, making their own projects. And what other franchise is doing that? Like, and I feel like that's one thing. And I would say if I had anything to complain about, like it's considerably overlooked how crazy and how big the fan films got for Friday the 13th. And how much of a social impact that they've had across the board. How many different films have been launched in the last 8 years? I mean, there's got to be 100. And to go from 3 or 4 films that were on YouTube to hundreds of Friday the 13th films, that's kind of a special little thing. And I think that like, I don't want to take all the credit for it because I'm sure there were plenty of people out there who already had ideas for Friday the 13th fan films or were maybe thinking about doing it. But I think Never Hike Alone for a lot of people was like that spark that was like, I got to do it now. Because that's how I felt. I was like, I got to do it now or never, and go. And then that opportunity turned into an opportunity to work with Tom Matthews, Vinny Guastafaro, you know, Larry Zerner, Doug Tate, and all these other alumni who came in and helped us out. Like Adam Marcus does voices on the film as well. Ron Sloan, being able to go do 13 Fanboy, all of those things stemmed from this crazy idea to go make a fan film and make it good enough where people would actually want to watch it. And I think that that's opened up the door for a lot of different filmmakers and creators to see what we've done and take that as some type of influence, or, you know, I'm trying to think of the word. I have the ADHD. So, you know, when you think of the word, it doesn't get there. I say influence.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, you know
inspired.
What I mean? Inspired. That's what I want. Yeah. Like, and so they're inspired to do it. And so, and I've heard, you know, people say that to me too. And like down the road, what we did with, you know, Dylan's New Nightmare, Cecil was inspired to, he wrote this script. He was really passionate about it. We met through Never Hike Alone. Cecil was one of the first people who sort of looked at Never Hike Alone and went, prove it. He was like, I'm not convinced. I think he watched the first trailer. He's like, I'm not quite convinced. I need to see more. And then he saw more and he loved it. And we, you know, we became friends, you know, hanging out down at, I think, a Mad Monster one year. Went back to his house, smoked a bowl with him and, you know, just kind of chilled me. And a couple of years later, he came up to me. He's like, I got this idea. I wrote this script, and he pitched me Dylan's New Nightmare. And I was like, that's a great idea. If you can get Miko used, and that was his idea, was to go get Miko to come back and do it. And so I got to play this nice role as a producer in this standpoint of like, now people knew what Never Hike Alone was. It had this established credibility. So for me to go with Cecil and talk to Miko and say, hey, we're going to do it at this level, you know, that gives Miko the confidence to work with Cecil. And then me giving me the chance to work with Cecil to be like, I'm going to open the door to the resources that I have. We're going to build the teams like of the same people that I used to build Never Hike Alone. Bring in your own people, whoever you want to bring. But anytime we need to fill a gap, we got a whole roster of people that, you know, can do the job. And so we get to bring in Nora Hewitt. You know, Nora did an amazing job on Never Hike in the Snow. And then she gets to do one of her favorite things that she's ever done, which is design a Freddy. And then we get the guy who designed the Smile Monster, Mikey Rotella, to go and sculpt our Jason. And it's just sort of this. And again, I keep seeing this really cool thing where here is Cecil, a guy with a YouTube channel. He's done a couple of films in the past, but he really wants to get in and make something that's substantial. All of a sudden, he's working with the winner of Face Off season 9. He's working with, Mikey. He's got Ron Sloan. He's got Dave McRae. Miko Hughes is coming in. Ben Meredith came in as a DP from the Never Hike Alone series, and then was able to build a lot of his crew of people that he had. And this small little crew came together in an Airbnb in Phoenix for a week and created the iHorror short of the year. And so, it's kind of it's fun to look back and be like, wow, this is really cool. But, also think about the fact that it started before COVID. So we had to battle through COVID to get through those production lumps, get everybody back together, we had to go and crowdfund more money because it was going to cost more money, and, following it through to the end. And I think that that's one of the cool things that I really appreciate about the people that I've worked with, is that the people that I've really worked with and stuck through, really, no matter what happens to them, they keep moving forward. They keep finding a way to make their project happen. And it may take a little bit longer than we originally anticipated, but we eventually get it out. And when we do, it at least matches or exceeds expectations. People enjoy it, and, they want to see more. And I think it's opened up opportunities for myself, for Cecil, people like James Sweet with the Jason Rising project. It's just been a really cool experience to not only like have the benefit for myself, but help my friends, reach their goals as well.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, people I think some folks probably realize like this could be a good like business card. You could turn this into something that's like, hey, I can prove that I can make a film by working with something that will get more attention than maybe an original idea would. I think it's a really good sort of foot in the door for folks that have been wanting to get something going.
It is, but I would say that like if you're making a fan film because you want people to notice you, you're in it for the wrong reasons. Like if you're like, oh, people will notice this and they'll notice me because of it, because it's a thing. I think you really got to have something to say about that franchise. You got to have something to say about those characters, something that's just been burning in your soul, but from watching these movies about whatever happened to that character. Why does it happen this way? Blah, blah, blah. Here's my explanation for it. And let me put it on film for you. Because back in the day, we used to do this stuff in film forums where we would write big, long diatribes about like, here's why I think Jason is a revenant and blah, blah, blah. And if you look at part 3 and if you look at part 4, blah, blah, blah. I didn't have to do that anymore. I got to put it on screen and show these moments where Jason sees visions of his mother and she takes off his mask and he turns into a little boy again. And like all these kind of scenes I've always wanted to see. I didn't have to wait for the studio to do it. I got to make it. And there are people out there that, there are definitely teams out there of people who you can kind of tell they're doing it to rub shoulders with famous people. The work is going into how famous they can make themselves look versus how good they can make their film. And that's just bound to happen. And I think that, if that's what their thing is, they want a weekend with the alumni of Friday the 13th, they're going to pay them well to come out, read some lines and go home. And their experience is like the experience they have on set. That's good for them. When I work with people, I'm looking for people who have a story to tell. And I'm looking for people who are like, yeah, you know what? This is like, I can see it the way that Never Hike Alone was bubbling out of me. I can see it bubbling out of you. Just let me show you how to take all of this creativity and turn it into something. And, let me save you some time. Really, is what I like to do for people is like, let's not waste time. Let's get you what you need. Here's what you need. Call this person, get this lined up, get this paperwork filled out, go contact this person, get this locked down, build the schedule, get the budget. Here's the budget. Here's how we do it. You know what I mean? And then you run off and you empower somebody to go get something done. And that's, it's just a really, really cool feeling.
Hell yeah. No, that's the best way to go about it, is just use that passion to help, drive what you're doing. It's the way that, when I was doing music and all that stuff, that was just the way that I rolled with that. It was just let the music be that compass. Holy cow, Undead One dropping $10 with the super chat. Thank you so much, Undead One. You are too sweet. Thank you for the amazing super chat. Yeah, really appreciate it. So yeah, Robert says bring on Dylan's New Nightmare Part 2. I'm sure he's chomping at the bit to get to work on that one.
I know Cecil's written the script. So I still have to read it. I know it's pretty big. But
Mhm.
he writes like a novel. Like that's his writing style. He's very descriptive. He knows exactly what he wants. And so his pages are sometimes a little bit bigger, but it's just that he just has so many details in his head about what he wants. And that's one of my favorite things about working with Cecil is that he has these details. And then we talk about like, okay, we can talk about these things on the page, but what is the visual? And then we
Mm.
really kind of, and I like those conversations about really locking it down so we can make it simple for everybody to go, okay, you got to build this and you got to build this, and this is how we do it. Dylan's New Nightmare, if it is, like I said, I haven't read the script yet, but we talked about some fun things as we wrapped. We've talked about things since then at like the wrap party. I remember after the wrap party, we debuted it at Mad Monster, which was such a great experience. That was one of the coolest things ever. I mean, like that theater was packed,
Oh, it
everyone was
was
excited.
amazing. Yeah.
We get to go up to the hotel room afterwards, and we were all kind of sitting around and we were talking about the future of it. We pitched some really cool ideas. And the fact that this is the entity, not technically Freddy, this isn't Elm Street. This is like the entity trying to get into our world, trying to get into the real world. Some really cool, wild storylines that got pitched out. We pitched some pretty funny ones. But I'm looking forward to seeing how that comes together. Like I said, Cecil's working on it. And it's going to be about timing. It's going to be about building the resources. I'm pretty sure Miko's in. Miko's in. We're looking at, adding some other people too, just like we expanded with Never Hike Alone. We want to expand with Dylan's. We want to bring in some other familiar faces. So that will be really exciting to do that. I think now that people are more aware of what this team is capable of with the Freddy character or with the entity character, I think we're going to see, I think if he comes back to crowdfunding, I anticipate that he will see that surge, sort of like when we went from Never Hike Alone. We could barely raise $20,000, and then we did a home video campaign and we got 50, and then we did Never Hike in the Snow and we got 100. So, I think that from that standpoint, we'll see how much money we raise, and then we either take the Never Hike Alone approach where we break it up into different sections and we make it one thing at a time, or if we could raise a bunch of money, we can make more of it. We don't have to make 5 episodes. We can make 2 episodes, or maybe, 2 more installments. We've even talked about doing an animated Freddy versus Rex dream sequence fight with our friends at Mako Animation who are doing Ghosts in the Fog too. So there's lots of ideas out there. It's just a matter of, with original ideas and other things that we're working on, it's like fan films are fun, but there's no money in it. And I love when people get so pissed off when we raise all this money and like do all this stuff. It's like, there's no money in it. It's not like we're walking around and like driving Ferraris to the Dylan's New Nightmare set. Like we're literally scraping every dollar that we have to make sure it's going into the movie. And I can tell you from experience, both Cecil and I have taken personal money and put it into our own films because we need to pay for things. You know what I mean? It always ends up coming out of our pocket anyway, no matter how much money we raise. So we become investors in the film too. So we're all just investing together. No one from the production team is taking anything. We're investing just as much as you are, if not 10 times more. Yeah. Especially with that, when you calculate all the time that we put in too.
Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah, when people don't understand that, it's like, it costs money to make the movie, right?
Yeah.
Everybody. Yeah,
like even the food bills are expensive. You know what I mean? Like to feed people, to rent things, to build stuff.
Yeah, professional equipment. You're hiring professionals. Like it is. It's called a fan film because the folks making it don't own the intellectual property, but these are professional productions. Yeah, man, Cecil. It's like every time I hang out with Cecil, he's got like a few more brand new ideas. He's just an idea machine. He's like, oh yeah, and then I've got this graphic novel that I'm working on that's this thing. I've got this Superman thing I'm working on that's this thing. And I'm just like, oh my God, Cecil, just to, be that sort of idea man, it's got to be pretty wild. And then, I mean, what right now he's probably, I think he's got a couple different versions of the Dylan's New Nightmare script going, just depending on which way it all goes. So I'm hoping for the best on that, because much like Jason, Freddy is just so dormant after that. That remake just really didn't. I mean, say what you want about the 2009 Friday the 13th, but what the heck happened with that A Nightmare on Elm Street remake?
Yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street really got the
really puts things into perspective. It
It
makes me
does.
want to watch Rob Zombie's Halloween,
Oh my
which
God.
I'm not a fan of at all. But yeah, speaking of Halloween, like during the spooky season, do you have any, I know you're a really busy guy and all that stuff. Do you have any sort of like silly traditions or just like, anything that's like nostalgic from your childhood, particular to this time of year that stands out when you like, I don't know if you do this, but if you ever like reflect on spooky season and just letting yourself enjoy some of it.
I mean, I try to get out to a haunt or two, you know what I mean? Like I'm a big fan
Hmm.
of haunts. You know what I miss is I miss like AMC Fear Fest. Like I miss having
Mm,
normal TV and just turning it on and whatever movie was
yeah.
on, just kind of watching it. And like that was sort of what I would do through. I was like, oh, good horror movies are going to be on all week. Literally, I go on Netflix and I go on Hulu and I go on everything now and I flip through and I'm like, there is nothing here I want to watch. Like,
Yeah.
with that said, I did get to watch Apartment 7A. I thought that was pretty decent. Um, I'm going to probably go see The Substance tomorrow. What else did I watch? I finally sat down and watched Trap, which I thought was very silly. And I just sort of like kind of cycle through and do different movies.
Mhm.
I try to find something I've never seen before. I think that that's one thing. I think every Halloween, I think that I either try to find something I've never heard of or seen before, or something that I've heard of for years, and it sort of has been on the to watch list. And it's like,
Yeah.
all right, it's time to give this thing an hour and a half and see what it's about. I don't know what movie that's going to be yet, but maybe it will be Return to Salem's Lot because I watched the new Salem's Lot and I know the old Salem's Lot.
Mhm.
Um, and I saw Return to Salem's Lot, and I was like, I've never seen that. And now that I'm all caught up on Salem's Lot, I might as well complete the puzzle. So we'll
Is The
see what that's
Return
like.
is that the one with Rob Lowe?
Maybe no, that would be
That
the
was just like a
2000.
remake
That was
series. Okay.
another remake, which actually I don't think I've ever seen that remake. It might have been a series, so I got to go back and watch that. But I did talk to someone on the uh the crew for Salem's Lot because I was reaching out to them to say, "Hey, congratulations on the film finally releasing."
Yeah.
And I heard about the other ending. So the other ending had them going back to the house. Like basically was it like they find Barlow, um, they burn him, and then he escapes. And he gets back to the house, and then they have to take out everybody, at the drive-in, and then they have to go back and face, Barlow. Him and the kids got to go back and face Barlow at the house. And there was a whole fight sequence at the house.
Oh.
I may have seen some footage of what they did, and it was really rad. Um, and I heard, basically, like I think it got released, but there was like a 3-hour cut that Gary turned in. Gary Doberman, who is
Mm.
the director, he was the guy who wrote It Chapter 2, and so he was the
Okay.
writer director of Salem's Lot. And apparently, like the reason why the film jumps around so much is they literally cut out giant sequences of character development and all these different things that really brought it together. Um, but anyway, it was interesting. It was an interesting watch because I think from a horror film standpoint, it's like, okay, new horror movie. It's a remake of Salem's Lot. What are they going to do? How close to the book are they going to stick? Are they going to, more do like the movie style? And then there was the production side of it of like knowing that this was a troubled production, that they had to go do reshoots. They shot it
Yeah.
out here in I think they shot part of it in Massachusetts, or they shot it in New Hampshire or Maine or something like that. And knowing the production troubles, knowing they reshot it, knowing that it was sitting on a shelf, and knowing that it's just been dormant for 2-3 years, it's sort of interesting to see like, oh, how does this project get handled and where's it go?
Yeah.
I'm always interested in that stuff like that, like the behind the scenes, like how did this film get made, and how long did it take to make, and what were the obstacles in the way. So it's an interesting story.
And it looked like with that one, there was like a chance that maybe it wasn't going to see the light of day.
Yeah, it
It
was
seemed
going to
like
get the
for a
old
little bit.
Coyote versus Acme treatment.
Yeah, which is
Yeah,
just to
Batgirl.
me is so bizarre. Exactly. That's just so bizarre. Hopefully they do release that 3-hour cut because that's kind of what I've heard. Just some of the criticism is that it seems like things are missing, which is a damn shame because especially if you release it digitally to streaming platforms, just include both, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. Just give
Honestly,
people
like
the option.
they see what, like, you can talk crap about the Snyderverse all you want, but like when Zack Snyder got to release Justice League, I thought that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like you got to watch a movie and then you got to watch it again and it was like almost completely different.
Oh my
Like
god, it's like worlds different. It's
the world's different.
crazy. And
Like
it
I was just
like
so amazed by like how different it was. I was like, "Oh my god, like he really did have a completely different vision for this. This is
yeah,
crazy."
a different, the story, the tone, like almost everything about it just seems so like, watching
That
the Joss.
ending, the
Yeah,
ending was
yeah.
so epic. It was
I
so
mean,
much better.
diving into all the like, I'm a big character guy. Like, I
Yeah.
love having the characters drive the story and having character arcs for, everyone that you can. And it felt like that's what really, to me, made it so much more of an engrossing experience. Like, yeah, it's really long and everything, but you're getting like some really meaty chunks there for each
Mhm.
character that just made it so much more satisfying. Whereas the Joss Whedon version, it's like every time I watch something of Joss's that's a film, I'm just sort of like, I just think, dude, you do really great television. I just don't know if you do great film. Like, I love Buffy. And when you direct a Buffy episode, man, those episodes look so good. But then I watch something, even going back and watching like one of the Avengers movies, I'm like, this looks kind of flat. Like, I just, I'm sort of a snob when it comes to that, I suppose. But yeah, it's they should just start calling director's cuts the Snyder cut. That should just be, it should just like replace the phrase. Should just be
I know
like,
that'd be
release
funny.
the Snyder cut of Salem's Lot.
I mean, they really should. I mean, I think that like a lot of people would love to watch that. You know, look at how many
Mhm.
cuts of Blade Runner are there? You know what I mean?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
well, cinephiles will watch it, and especially when streaming,
Yeah.
they don't have to purchase it, they don't have to do anything. It's already there and it's ready for them to watch. You know, Netflix just did that with Zack Snyder's other thing, Rebel Moon, which
Mhm.
I could like as Justice League, I was like, wow, this is great. I love the way that this all came together. When I watched Rebel Moon, I was like, I turned both of them on. Like I never watched the second half of either one, and I didn't make it through halfway through the first one. I was just like, and I don't turn movies off. Like I'm gonna tell you, like it's really, you really got to miss the mark for me to like turn a movie off.
Yeah, I
And I
haven't
love a lot
checked
of his
those out.
movies too.
Yeah, I hadn't checked those out either just because they seem so incredibly long that I'm like, it's just so much time to invest on something that I don't really know. And also, maybe the trailers with the slow motion and the matching it up with a pop song or like a rock song, I was like, oh, so Zack Snyder's doing this again. Like, okay. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, that alternate sort of Star Wars kind of, it does seem like at this point we need something to sort of replace Star Wars because Star Wars isn't even like Star Wars anymore. It just seems
I
to
know.
be like whatever they decide they want it to be instead
Mhm.
of like trying to talk about sticking with the lore and everything like that. And and being character driven or story driven, it seems more of like, well, what's the point that we want to make with this show? That's what we'll start
Mhm.
with, is like,
Yeah,
what do
yeah,
we
yeah.
want to teach the audience,
What's
and
the
then we'll go from there.
message? It's like
Yeah.
save the galaxy. How
Who do
about
we
that?
need to attack, and what victim group in our world needs to be elevated through this TV show? And
I
it's
know,
like,
right?
okay, sure, go ahead and try that again. But yeah, it's so you grew up out there in Massachusetts, right? So
Mhm. Yep.
you experience, I would imagine, fall out there, Halloween. It's just got to be an amazing time of year. Was
Mhm.
it so cold though that you had to wear like a jacket over your costume or long
No, it's
johns or
still
anything like that?
no, I mean, it'd be chilly, but you'd just wear like a full costume, you know what I mean? You wouldn't be out there in like shorts or anything. But like I always had like
Mhm.
let me say I had some good costumes, like a good dinosaur costume. I think my favorite costume ever is I had a Killer Clowns from Outer Space full on costume. Like I had like the
Damn.
proper head, I had the costume thing, like the clown costume thing. That was one of my favorite ones. I was actually, as a kid, I was actually never Jason. And I was never Jason because I could never find a mask that was good enough. I was like, I'm not going to be
Mm.
Jason until I can do it right. And I didn't do it right till I was like
E
32.
Even then you had standards. You're like, "No, what are the people gonna say?" Like, "I will not do it if it can't be the right one." And, I did the opposite of that. I dressed up as Michael Myers long before there was a mask when I was, like, 9 or 10 years old, and I just used face paint. I just painted my
Oh,
face white
oh
and
my
did dark
God.
circles around my eyes and wore black sweatpants and a black sweatshirt.
Well, good thing you did. Good thing you painted your face that.
Sure. Well, yeah, I wanted to look like Michael Myers or some sort of ghastly figure. So I got, let's see here, Cosmic Urgency. Welcome to the chat. Cosmic Urgency says, are you guys excited to see Terrifier 3? It might be going to the top of the box office. I guess I wouldn't be surprised if it does top the box office. I don't know what else is coming out this weekend, but is that something, you know, I know how you feel about Leone taking over something like Friday the 13th, but as far as how he works within his own world, is Terrifier 3 something you're interested in checking out here pretty soon?
No, I watched the first two, and like there's just nothing in those films for me. It just feels like, oh, this is like, there's gore, and then the scenes in between are really tough to watch. I just can't get through them. I'm like, this is so bad. And then there's more gore. And then it's sort of like at some point I'm just like, I'm not entertained anymore. I'm just kind of the movie, like I remember I watched the first Terrifier and I was like, okay. I was like, oh, you got to see this kill in it. And I was like, man, when is this kill coming? And then, you know, she splits the girl in half. And I was like, that looks like a fake mannequin. And then you go to the next movie and it's sort of like more of the same. And I was like, that all looks like really, really fake effects. Oh, cool. And the clown is dancing around and putting on stupid glasses. I was like, this is good. Okay. Have what you will. And then like, I had no problem with it. It was like, I get it. I mean, people who love like hardcore grindhousey sort of like that B movie, like feel like that's like, you know, a whole staple of horror cinema. And it was like, when people were like, this guy should make Friday the 13th. I was like, please no. I was like, that is a step in the opposite direction of like where we are trying to push Friday the 13th, which is it could actually be better than it used to be. That would actually be worse than it used to be. Like there was at least a level of cinematic quality to the old Friday the 13th. Whereas like Terrifier is pretty straightforward, basic. It's like a very basic thing with it built around gore, and everything else in between really doesn't keep me interested. And so as a fan, I was like, please God, no, please do not make this do not make him like the shining star to go to this next level. Like there are so many better directors out there.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be the right. To me, it doesn't even seem to be the right thing for his style. Like, I just feel like the two pieces should sort of mix, unless he wants to do something that's drastically different than what he's done in Terrifier 3. I think like him doing something like Evil Dead would be a bit more appropriate. Although I'd love to see Demian Rugna who did Terrified and When Evil Lurks. Like, I'd love to see him do an Evil Dead film, because When Evil Lurks sort of feels like a more grounded.
No, I think you let that guy
just
keep doing his own thing. He has his own world that he's building. And it's just it's light years ahead of what anybody else is doing. And then that's what I'm thinking. Like, here's this guy who does, you know, When Evil Lurks, and that film is so good. Like it's a great film. Like it's compelling. The acting is top notch.
Oh my
God. The effects are crazy. The story is interesting and brand new. And like, it doesn't even matter that it's in another language and you got to read the subtitles. Like it is just that. I saw it at Telluride Horror Show and it blew my mind. And you know, like I said, like you mentioned it perfectly. Like I think Leone is perfect for an Evil Dead. I think like if you were going to remake Ghoulies, like you'd go get a guy like Leone, like something that's like goofily effects driven, that doesn't have to be serious, that kind of stays within its own tone. Because the one thing I tried to like bring up as a topic was like, he's been making the same film since 2008. He did The Ninth Circle of Hell. Then he did, what was the anthology?
All Hallows Eve.
All Hallows Eve, and then he did Terrifier and Terrifier 2, and he's just been making Art the Clown films for there, and it didn't take off until David Howard Thornton took over the clown suit. You know, that's when it took it to the next level, because people were able to connect with that character and they like what he's doing, the Mr. Bean who's evil type thing. But like you like but Art the Clown to me is like, he's like a bad pun. Like as far as like comedic taste, like it's not in my comedic wheelhouse. It's like somebody telling a series of bad puns, and it's like, that's not funny. But I see why people think puns are funny, and I see you guys having fun with puns, but like that's just not my style. And I don't want fun with puns in Friday the 13th. Like I want dead serious filmmaker coming in, making something that is, you know, like a David Bruckner, like what he did with The Ritual, or a Jeremy Saulnier, what he just did with Rebel Ridge, the way he was able to twist story and keep you guessing, or what Brian Fuller was going to do, this master of storytelling who was going to take us through the entire pain and grieving of a mother, and then tell this entirely new story of Jason from a perspective with, you know, this, you know, I think just a it's, you know, I'm trying not to be insulting, and that's sometimes I accidentally get insulting.
Let
But
it fly. You're on Late Night with the Davey. No,
Brian Fuller
no
is a
one
master of
cares.
the craft. These people are masters of the craft who have made multiple projects of
Mm,
different tones, shapes, and sizes and have proven themselves. Just
yeah.
because a guy can go out there and crush a baby's head and rip Santa's head off and, you know, peel a girl's, scalp a girl and like pour salt on the wounds of people, like that's fun and entertaining for some people, but that doesn't translate to the audience that Friday the 13th has to translate to.
Mm-hmm.
It's a niche audience, and that niche audience is revved up. They love what they're doing. You're seeing a lot of Terrifier all over the place because they're doing what independent horror films have to do is they have to find their fan base. They have to rev their fan base up, and then that fan base has to keep it sustained. So yeah, Terrifier is going to do well this weekend because its fan base is going to show up and support the film. But you're not going to get, the normies out there watching the film. And I think that was one of the things I was interested in seeing with this run of it, because I think that Terrifier 2 lured a lot of normies into the theater. And I think a lot of the normies walked out and went, no way am I ever going to watch anything like that again. And so you're going to see the creepers come back in, like the real mutant fam people. And they're going to love it and they're going to do it. But I think that like it's going to find with 3, it's going to find its cap, because I can't imagine it continuing to go up. I feel like we're seeing the peak, and after this, I think it's going to get old. I already see people saying that, like, walking out of the theater, they're plants. You know what I mean? I talked to somebody who was at that screening. He said, yeah, what happened was we were all out there hanging out, and there was a bar, and everybody was drinking for like an hour. And then we all went into the theater, and like 10 minutes in, everybody had to get up and take a piss. And so people were walking out to go pee, and then they were coming back in. It wasn't because it was too brutal. Like no one puked. He said
they're going
they were like
to barf. Yeah.
And this whole like, walking out, people puking, people feeling sick. I feel like in the world of social media, and I think where a lot of people are sort of sick of it, it's like it's all people acting for social media. Yeah. It's not real. Nobody's walking out of a movie in 2024. Nobody's paying that. Nobody's showing up to this secret screening of a movie and then being like, oh, it's too much for me. And if they are, they're doing it for attention.
If you're going to see Terrifier, you know exactly what you're getting yourself into, right? Like there shouldn't be any shock at this point.
No,
at all.
And it's not like anything really looks that real. You know what I mean? Like some of the stuff in When Evil Lurks, that's creepy. That looked real. Like that looked, oh my God. Like there's different, like I've seen different effects that like really, really like are effective and look real. And it's like, it makes you cringe. And like, I'm like one of those people, like if somebody hits their hand with a hammer in a movie, like I go, ow, like stuff like that. And Terrifier can't get me to flinch at all because it all looks so fake.
Well,
like, it all looks like rubber chicken effects.
Yeah.
It's over the top. Like the skin is stretchy. The blood is bright. Like there's
just way more blood than in real life. There's more blood in like one slice than most people have.
It's like when in doubt, throw a gallon of blood on it and smear some shit on the wall. And it's like people go crazy for that. And it's like, okay.
I mean, still to me, that first kill in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre of just the mallet.
Oh my God.
The guy that to me is one of the most realistic. I'm like, that looks so real. The twitching and then just Leatherface's like excitement, his like little tippy toe dance that he does before, dragging the bot, like that unsettles me. But yeah, Terrifier to me is just sort of like, it's just the gag, the gag of it all.
Yeah, it's a series of gags, and and that's what I said. Like right now, it comes across as an effects driven, approach where the effects are first and everything else is second. And that's fine. I mean, that's fine for certain movies, and it's fine for your own niche. And if that's what you want to do, if you have like this freak show of things that you want to do for your movie, and that's what's pulling people in, that's cool. I don't want a Friday the 13th built around that. I want a Friday the 13th built around somebody who understands the lore of Friday the 13th, knows how to properly put together the pieces of, is Jason a revenant? Okay, how do those pieces all work? Is Jason a human person who survived the drowning and never came back? Well, put those pieces together too. And if you can't do either of those two things and you skip over it and you just make another 2009 with characters that don't mean anything and there's no lore and it's not connected to the past and it's just another random kids getting killed, I feel like that will be where the Friday the 13th franchise goes to die. I mean, I'm really scared that if they make a formulaic movie with their next movie and they don't think out of the box and actually build a story around the camp and the people, why is the camp there? Why is it not open? What happened? You're going to lose people's interest because there's going to be absolutely no story there.
Yeah, it's kind of like what is it? Tyler Durden in Fight Club says something about like the plane is just like everything single serving friend, single serving drink. And it sounds like if they go that route, that's all you're gonna get is that single service.
Yes.
That's kind of what 09 is. It's just like here are these things that are sort of familiar, but it's not really connected to anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's very single serving. It's very in the moment. It's like you're writing for the moment. You're not writing for the span of it. And you know, I know that like with the Terrifier series, like he's trying to write himself out of all these cornies that he's written himself into. And we'll see what happens with 3. I mean, other people will see what happens with 3. I'm not going to watch it. But I'm sure everybody will talk about it and it will be out on, you know, on the internet and 2 things. It's just that, man, it is. Yeah. I don't know. I have my own thing with it. It's just like, you know what I mean? It's just, and you can't even like, and the thing that pisses me off, I think the most about Terrifier is, you can't have an opinion about it. You can't have a negative opinion about it. You can't say it's not that good, or else you have an entire fan base who swoops down on you and like death threats. I've seen people get death threats because they're like, I don't like Terrifier. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, you suck. It's like, what the hell? Like they came and they age restricted Never Hike Alone 2 because Terrifier fans were upset because I said no, please to them saying we want that. I was like, no, please, please don't do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Twitter's crazy. I mean, you can't, you know, if you say anything about Terrifier or Melissa Barrera or Scream at all, you know.
Yeah, if you say anything about the core 4, like, you know what I mean? Like new Scream fans have like somehow hijacked the franchise, like they own it. And it's like, you know that Neve Campbell is like the original final girl, right? Like she has final say. They're like, she's done. She's over with. It's all about Melissa. It's like,
you know, those last 2 movies were mediocre at best, right? You know,
they were fine.
Yeah,
it's like they didn't really need to be made.
No, and they don't really advance. I guess they just advance, you know, Tara and Sam's characters a little bit, you know, and that's pretty much it. They don't really advance like any other part of the story. Yeah, they don't really need to exist. I wanted to say thank you to Frank for the $2 here, stopping in to say what's up. And it looks like there's another one. Holy cow, $5 from Frank Riker. Guys, if you don't follow the Slaughtered Lamb Movie Podcast, go check them out. You will not be disappointed. And Frank even has his own channel, so go give that a sub as well. He says, what horror icons would you like to see attached in a human centipede movie? Ooh, we could do like who's front, who's middle, who's back, right?
Chucky's got to be in there somewhere.
Oh my god!
But he's like lifted up, so he'd be like between 2 people, and his legs and arms would be dangling because he's so short. That's like the one image I could just see is Chucky in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, and him just grimacing, that face that he makes, just the muffled Brad Dourif, you know, voice. Yeah, so Chucky's in the middle.
Smile Monster would have to be in there with that big ass like 50 mouth smile.
Yeah,
that'd be interesting.
And that thing's huge, right? Yeah. The Smile Monster looks like it's what, 10 feet tall, 12 feet tall, something crazy. So that's a pretty big juxtaposition there. Chucky and the Smile Monster. Where else do we go from there? Golly, you can't even put one of the normies in there after that.
No, you can have Michael in there somewhere. I don't know, it'd be tough to get him in.
Michael can just be at the end. He'll just be the last one. He'll eat all the shit.
Oh my god. He wouldn't even flinch.
Or Art the Clown.
Yeah, just that'd be funny.
Yeah, and then he can just sort of be. He'd probably find the other thing too with his own torture, for sure.
I feel like Art the Clown is like, he's so beatable. Like he's not big, he's not scary, he's not tough. Like anyone could kick his ass. That's why he just picks on like 5-foot girls.
But even if you cut off his head, he still just gets reborn through. Like that's what I'm guessing is in this third movie. It's reached the point to where Leone's like, okay, now I have to like give a reason for like what all this supernatural stuff is. You know,
it's fine.
Like you said, painted in a corner.
Actually, I was talking to a good friend of mine, Joe Gallo, we thought it would be funny. Like we should do like a Ghost Jason versus Art the Clown, like fan film. And like, it would be one of these things where like, they're both each other's worst nightmare. Like, because Art would annoy the shit out of Jason, because Jason would like continuously kill Art, but Art would keep coming back. And Art would be frustrated because no matter what he does to Jason, Jason just doesn't flinch or die. And so like he just keeps getting back up and dealing with it and just beating his ass and kind of going back there. There'll be this funny, just like never ending cycle of like these two killers that can't die, which would actually be kind of funny.
Kind of like a buddy like if you put them on in a road trip movie, like that'd be kind of cool. Like a little Planes, Trains, and Automobiles kind of vibe with Art the Clown and Jason Voorhees.
Yeah, Jason would be Steve Martin. Art's John Candy.
I think the only thing that would make Art sad would be being in a zombie apocalypse, because there'd be all this carnage around him, but he wouldn't really be able to do much to contribute because the zombies would just be cleaning house, you know. Put Michael in the front since he's eating dogs. The Michael eating dogs talk just won't stop over here on the Davey Deathray channel. People are keeping it alive. Just get over it, everyone. Yeah, he eats dogs. It happens, okay? He's Michael Myers. He's not human. People forget that. They want to say that he's human, but he's really, I mean, at least if we believe, you know, Dr. Loomis, I don't know. How are you a fan of the Halloween movies, Vin? Are you like really casual about it, or like?
I mean, I'm like more than casual, not as much as Friday the 13th.
Yeah, that makes sense. Everyone's got to have their tippy top, right? Like I am a Halloween guy, but holy crap, we celebrate Friday the 13th like year round here in the house. There's always an excuse to put one of those movies on. And of course, you know, Kate and I had our first date on a Friday the 13th and got married on a Friday the 13th as well. Awesome. So, and our Wi-Fi is Camp Crystal Lake.
There you go.
So, yeah, we're definitely nerds for it as well. Cool. Well, shit, man. We've been talking for about an hour and a half. I know it's late out there. I really appreciate
the midnight hour.
Oh yeah, we're approaching Raymond's birthday is coming up in about 13 minutes, I think, if I'm right, Raymond. Let me know if you're still hanging out there in the chat. Yeah, guys, I wanted to remind you, you know, in the links in the description below, you can find the Womp Stomp Films socials and the YouTube page. There's a link in there as well to support Never Hike Alone, the final cut on Kickstarter. And of course, go to Womp Stomp Films, check out the Never Hike Alone films. You're going to be, I think I saw Liana in here earlier. She's really up on everything, but she was like, how the heck did I even miss this stuff? So guys, if you haven't seen, you know, the Never Hike Alone series, get ready to have your minds blown, especially if you're a fan of Jason Voorhees. And what do you have immediately coming up here? I know we kind of touched on, you know, what's going on in general, but is there anything sort of coming to a head for you here within, you know, when you mentioned Fragment, when does that release? And then what folks have till the end of the month, right, for the Kickstarter, correct?
Yeah. So right now we're doing the Never Hike Alone, the final cut, which will be the entire series cut into one film. We did something like that a few years ago called the Ghost Cut, which put Never Hike Alone and the Never Hike in the Snow and Disappear together. But we're doing something a little bit different where it's less anthology and more of like a one fluid film. So we're working on that now. Out of that is something called Ghost in the Fog, which is a 7-minute animated Friday the 13th short film with Jason Voorhees. You know, 3 kids walk into the forest in the middle of a fog, get lost, end up at Camp Crystal Lake, run into Jason Voorhees, and then get killed brutally in animation. We're doing that with Mako Animation based out of Mexico. We're trying to use that as our stretch goal in the Kickstarter. Our main goal is $50,000, which we're very close right now. We're just about $12,000 away. The goal for Ghost in the Fog is $100,000 total. So we're hoping to hit our first goal, reach the end of the campaign, and then continue to raise money over the next few months, you know, maybe come up with new perks and things like that, so we can get it produced for next year on Jason's birthday. We want to release the final cut and Ghost in the Fog on June 13th, 2025. Fragment is currently on the festival circuit, so you may, if you keep an eye out for it, it's screening all over the country, different festivals. We're going to be trying to go the distribution route, so we'll see what happens. It may become available on Amazon or Shudder or something down the line. Rob and his team are working on that. We are going to do a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo for it. somewhere down the line. Somewhere down the line for stuff. And we'll let people know when that kind of happens. Bath Bombs have been making its rounds. Another one that we worked on has been going around the festival circuit. I see someone asked a question. Any new updates on the Never Hike Alone Blu-rays? Yes. I'm almost done with them. I'm just working on the final bonus, the bonus features. I'm cutting together. I'm just putting the credits on Ghost in the Fog. I got to tweak something on the table read that's going to be on there. And then there's a commentary track that I need to just kind of splice up and kind of get fixed. Just a couple more things. I've just kind of been taking care of as much stuff after work as possible. I should be able to submit the order by next week. And then hopefully we'll be shipping Blu-rays just in time for Christmas. So we'll be shipping them out sometime in November. And a lot of them will be arriving in early December and Christmas time, probably into next year. VHSs as well, and all the other things that we have kind of going on. They just got to get made and kind of go in. I just need to build each thing from there. Then after that, I'm working on a bunch of other projects, original projects that we're pitching to different companies, and really excited about those. I can't say much about them, but hopefully sometime next year we'll be able to release some press releases and say, hey, we're making these movies, and you keep an eye out for them. Hopefully in the theater, maybe streaming. Who knows? We just want to make good movies and get them out to people.
Hell yeah. Awesome. Well, you guys can keep track of everything going on with WOMP Stomp through the links in the description below. Vin, best of luck on the remainder of the campaign here throughout the month. And then, yeah, guys, go and support Never Hike Alone, the final cut. Vin, have a great rest of your October. I'm sure we'll speak sometime soon. But I hope you have a great rest of your evening here, and go Yankees, man. How about it?
Yeah. Hell yeah. See you, man. You have a good one.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Bye.
All right. Holy cow. What a fun chat with Vin. It's always great to catch up with him. Man, so many fun projects in the works over there, and just one of the most like inspiring, passionate, busy kind of guys that I know in this awesome community that we have. So big thanks to Vin for stopping by and hanging out with us. Guys, don't forget to check out the links in the description below. You are going to want to support those crowdfunding campaigns that they've got going over at WOMP Stomp. They're always doing great work over there. And Dean, thank you so much for the $4.99 super chat, my guy. Really appreciate you. Super awesome of you to throw some of your hard-earned money here at the channel, and I'm glad that Vin could take care of that question for you as well. Thank you so much for the $4.99 DA Mac. Really appreciate you as well. Hope you have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you next time around. Yeah, hell yeah. Let's see what else we've got going on. Oh, no worries, bud. Jamie says, don't forget to smash that like, subscribe to the channel, join the Death Squad, and if you're watching on the replay, leave a comment. Couldn't have said it better myself, Jamie. Thank you so much for jumping in there with that. Thank you so much, Allie. Really appreciate you hanging out with us here tonight. Oh my gosh, yes, it will be. Absolutely. Hopefully you get a good night's sleep there. Take a little half an edible, maybe. Matt Facci in the house. What's happening, Matt? Always a pleasure to have you hanging out. Really enjoyed. I couldn't catch the whole thing because I jumped on a stream over on Frank's Media and Reviews last night, but I really enjoyed seeing you and Matt from Mad Blood talking together. Really excited to have him on the channel here later this month. He's going to be on late night here on Wednesday, the 23rd. And I'm really, really interested in, just getting to know him a bit and chat with him because, it seems like I saw him on the Slaughtered Lambs channel just the other day and then on your channel. And it just seems like he's got, really good vibe with everybody. I really enjoyed watching you guys hang out, Matt. Let's see what else we got going on. Paula Fitzhenry. How you doing, Paula? Great to see you joining us here. John Doe Juggalo. What's happening, John Doe Juggalo? Guys, if you happen to miss the Vincent DiSanti interview /chat/discussion, I used to call them interviews, but it doesn't really feel so much like an actual, this isn't like 60 minutes or anything like that with like a true setup interview, but in a sense it sort of is. an interview. If you guys missed that, you can always scrub back and check it out. We had chatted a lot about Friday the 13th, which is something that Vin is an absolute PhD in, and I'm a bit of a fan myself as well, so that was really great. Hell yeah. Really appreciate everybody dropping in here. Holy cow, we have 22 people hanging out in the stream with us. That is amazing. You guys are absolutely incredible. I guess I can sort of catch you up on a little bit about what's going on over here at the channel. I'm putting the finishing touches on my latest Tales from the Crypt episode review. It's been a really long time since I've put one of those out. I apologize, guys. Got a little busier than I had anticipated, but I'm going to be wrapping that one up tonight. I'm going to be dropping it for patrons and channel members tomorrow, and then for everyone else, it'll drop on Friday. Speaking of which, on Friday, I'm going to be doing another Davey Science Theater. And I can't even remember what movie do I have coming up. Oh, this is going to be a good one. I've got Carnival of Souls coming up here on Friday the 11th. I know everyone's going to be out watching Terrifier 3. But if you're not watching Terrifier 3 and you're not watching It's Me, Billy Chapter 2, which you definitely should be watching it that day, then you can join me over here on the channel for a little Carnival of Souls on Friday night. Man, what else do I got going on Saturday? I'm going to be on Wolfman's Got Nards channel. We're going to be talking about Halloween 4 and is it overrated a bit? We're going to have a little discussion on that. And then later on Saturday the 12th over here on the Davey Deathray channel, my guy Foz Rotten and I are going to be having an episode of Movie Punks live. We're going to be talking The Lost Boys on Movie Punks. Guys, if you're new to the channel, you're going to want to check out Movie Punks. It's really fun. We do it about once a month. We're doubling up this month because we missed last month, but it's where Foz and I, we're both big fans of like punk rock and fans of movies and horror movies, all that kind of stuff. So the idea behind Movie Punks is that we cover films that have a punk rock edge. And I think for the most part, other than Airheads, every movie, correct me if I'm wrong, has been a horror movie. So we've got some episodes in the can. We covered Dawn of the Dead, Return of the Living Dead, Night of the Demons. I think it was Night of the Demons 2 is what we covered in our very first episode. So that's pretty fun. That'll be live Saturday the 12th. And then on the 13th, I'm going to be over on Pat That Halloween Collectors channel. We're going to be kind of doing like a what if of the Halloween series. So that'll be a fun little live discussion there on Sunday. So man, spooky season, the month of October, really jam-packed over here. Last year I had just started my channel, kind of did a slow start in July, really started hitting the ground running more in like August and September last year when the channel was brand new, and didn't really do anything like too crazy special for October. I was still just sort of getting my feet under me and, realizing how much work really went into pre-recorded. And I wasn't really doing lives at that point because, there was no one would have shown up if I was doing lives within my first couple months. So really trying to be a lot more active this October, just trying to squeeze as much juice out of spooky season as we can. I believe we just hit 1,100 subs here on the channel, which is amazing. Thank you so much to everyone. A lot of you have been there for a long time. Like a lot of people that I see in the chat have been here since we were at just 400 or 500 subs, maybe 600 subs. We just hit 1,000 less than a month ago. I think it was on Friday the 13th last month, where we crossed 1,000. So to be hitting 1,100 now is really cool. Onward and upward, trying to get to that 2,000 sub goal by the end of the year. Yeah, right. But you know what? If you don't set a high goal, if you just set some low bar goal and you hit it, like how satisfying is that, right? Not very. So let's shoot for the stars. Let's say the goal is 2,000 by New Year's Eve. Let's see how close we get. It'll be a fun little challenge there for sure. Raymond, that is awesome that you subbed to Mad Blood Matt when he was on TSL. Yeah, his channel is really fun. It's blowing up like crazy. Yeah. Dean, I absolutely love Tales from the Crypt. Our guy Eli Cortez, who is a mod on the channel here, he gifted me the first 4 seasons on DVD. And so it kind of just sparked this idea. I was like, man, I grew up with this show, even though I never had HBO in my house, but one of my friends always had it. So it was like, you know, you sleep over at someone's house, you catch an episode of Tales from the Crypt. It always felt so taboo, and like we were getting away with something. And so a lot of nostalgia there with the show. So yeah, we've been going through and reviewing each episode. And then after we do the episode, I do a live watch party with the members only, and we watch the episode together. So really, really fun stuff there. Yeah, spicy topic over on Wolfman's Got Nards. Really pumped to, you know, be hopping on over there to Barry's channel. You know, for the folks that are new here, Barry, you know, when I look back to like the people that really were inspiring me beyond just like the angry video game nerd and that sort of stuff that I was watching in my really early days with YouTube, in the late aughts, you know, Barry and Lee from Drum Dums were 2 of the movie reviewers that like really brought me into the platform and made me want to, like, they planted the seeds for what would eventually become this channel, starting, you know, just last year. It took me a long damn time, but it's amazing to, you know, just to work with Barry is absolutely incredible. We already talked about our top 10 favorite zombie films over on his channel, which was great. And then we did like a little bit of a debate on H2O. He's a giant H2O fan. I'm pretty lukewarm. So we had a fun little back and forth on his Double Scoops I guess I guess it's a podcast, but it's just Double Scoops, that show that he's got on his channel. And yeah, I'm coming back for another a second scoop of Double Scoops to talk about if Halloween 4 is overrated. So yeah, fun stuff. And yes, you're right, Dean, Airheads is so effing great. The long-awaited return of movie punks. Can't wait, says Raymond. Well, hell yeah. And holy cow, it's Raymond's birthday, everybody. It's been Raymond's birthday for 2 minutes officially. So happy birthday, Raymond. I would sing the song, but somebody owns the rights to happy birthday. So I'd probably get struck with something if I did it. But happy birthday, man. I hope it's a great one. I hope you have an awesome day. And yeah, that it's you know, do something fun, make it memorable, whatever, you know, you do you, but I hope you enjoy this birthday. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dean. Really appreciate you, man. Thank you so much, John Doe. Absolutely. Thank you. Really appreciate the support, guys. Eli's got a little message for you telling you to, you know, don't forget to slash that like button and sub to the channel. And he'll see you all in the chats. Hope you have a great night, Eli. It's always a pleasure having you hanging out with us, and we'll see you next time around. Yeah, I think I've just got 2 seasons that I have to track down if I want the whole thing. But I didn't know this. The episodes are available on YouTube. It seems like every episode is available, but it is so nice to be able to just pop in the DVD, you know, get to watch it in the highest definition possible. And just to have the, you know, physical media is fun to have. So yeah, Eli has just been sending me all sorts of amazing physical media. He's made my collection about 200 times better than it was before, for sure. There it is. Boom. Yeah. It's my birthday and I'll chat if I want to. Hell yeah. Let's see here. What else do we got going on? Wade Effin Wilson says Barry and Davey stream means a good time for us UK folk. That's right, because it'll be at 11 a.m. my time, which I believe is 7 p.m. out there for the folks in the UK. So yeah, always fun to chat with Barry. You know, honestly, it's like it's pretty surreal. I was kind of like beside myself. Even, you know, being able to even DMing with Barry is like, oh, like kind of a rock star sort of moment. So always a pleasure to, you know, get to work with him a bit. Let's see here. It's Wayne Gotkey. What's happening, Wayne? I think this might be the first time I've seen you in the chat. Everybody make Wayne feel welcome here. You're hanging out with the Death Squad, Wayne. He says it's such a missed opportunity for Max to not resurrect Tales from the Crypt. Yeah, right? I mean, first off, put the show on your platform, right? Like, get Tales from the Crypt on your platform. And yes, bring the series back. And you know what, Wayne? I've mentioned this like I think once before on the channel. I I would love it if they brought it back, but you know what I want them to do is I want them to keep it that like 3:4 ratio. I don't want to do like a widescreen, Tales from the Crypt. I want it to be like the original show. I think that would be like a fun limitation to set, and it would just sort of like keep it feeling old timey since most of the stories are from the old EC comics, that are pretty damn old timey as well. I think they're 50s and 60s. So yeah, I am all for a resurrection of Tales from the Crypt. Absolutely. Everyone's throwing Raymond some happy birthday messages. That is too awesome. There it is. Oh yeah. 7 total seasons of Tales from the Crypt. Okay. Yeah, I've heard it's really tough to collect some of those. So you know what? Even if I can't find them all, that's okay. I can watch them all on YouTube and still review the whole series. So that'll be a project that'll take years to complete, but it'll be kind of cool. It'll be interesting to see, like, a couple years down the line when I look back and see what those original reviews were like compared to what I'm doing at that time. Because I feel like the longer you do this sort of YouTube thing, any sort of performance thing, you just become a little more refined. You find your voice a bit better every single time. So yeah, it should be interesting. And Dean, thank you for pulling in Wayne. Really appreciate that one. I am safe from the hurricane, Prince, because I live on the other side of the country. I'm out in Arizona in the desert. So we've got, our monsoons in the summer and everything, but not nearly as dangerous as, what folks deal with who are dealing with hurricanes. So yeah, anyone that's watching from the East Coast, I hope you and your family are safe. I hope you've got enough provisions, or that you've, made a plan to find a safe place to be during the storm. Cody Leach, who had popped in earlier in the stream, his family is kind of like right in that track to be hit with some part of that storm. So yeah, it looks like it's going to affect a lot of people. And hopefully, everyone can come together and rebuild, and there's no, major loss of life or anything like that from the storm. It's crazy just to nature's serious business, weather, and it's crazy just how dangerous wind and water can be, when taken to the extreme, for sure. Well, there you go, Raymond. That should make for a great birthday, just watching your favorite horror movies. What do you have lined up? Do you already have it all picked out in your head, or written down somewhere? Or do you even have them pulled out of your collection and just like sitting there on the entertainment center ready to go? Let me know. I'm curious to know. The only problem with a Tales from the Crypt reboot is the Crypt Keeper will probably be AI. See, I think that's another thing, Raymond. I would want them to do like the 4:3 aspect ratio. And then also, like, let's do some honest to goodness puppetry. Maybe this would, I think, like, if you put somebody like Sam Raimi in the driver's seat, in the original Tales from the Crypt, I think there's like 5 producers, right? There was like Joel Silver, Walter Hill, Richard Donner. I think there was another Robert Zemeckis, and I'm forgetting the 5th person's name. But if you started out, like, let's say we bring in Sam Raimi, maybe Tarantino can throw some money at it and just be an executive producer or something like that. But if you had somebody like Sam Raimi as the producer of, the series, I think you would get the practical aspect. And I think, definitely that sense of humor that he's known for, that all of those episodes have their own kind of version of a sense of humor. That's what I really love about the anthology show like that is, yes, there are similar themes as far as like, adult themes, whether it be like sexuality or whatever. But then there's also, the tales of morality, a character usually gets their comeuppance, all that kind of stuff. But each episode does seem to have like its own kind of brand of humor. It doesn't, the humor part is not consistent, but the theme of humor in all the episodes is something that's consistent. So I think that Sam Raimi would be great to help provide that. And also, doing a practical Crypt Keeper. It couldn't cost that much money, because it's just a puppet. And if you build the puppet, you know, you've got it for years. So it shouldn't be too bad. But yeah, you have to put the right people in there in charge as well, for sure. Um, yeah, you have to keep them practical. And is John Kassir still around? I don't even know. I don't think that he's passed, but I would say bring back John Kassir to do the voice, or somebody that can do, you know, that voice in particular. Hey, what's happening, Matt? It's funny, man. We were just talking about you because Matt Facci had jumped in the chat, and I caught you guys yesterday over on his channel, and I caught you over on Slaughtered Lamb, and I believe it was Raymond. Was it you that had jumped in and said that you had just subbed over to Mad Blood Matt's channel from seeing him on TSL? So yeah, man, really pumped to see, you know, all the amazing success you've had over there. And can't wait to have a chat with you here in just a couple weeks. 2 weeks from today, Mad Blood Matt will be on Late Night with the Davey. There it is. Yeah. Yeah. Everybody say what's up to Matt. There it is. Liana saying what's up to Matt. Jamie saying what's up to Matt. Hell yeah. Raymond says, I have ideas of what I want to watch, but I don't have a set timeline. Definitely will be watching Abigail and Ginger Snaps and Halloween Kills. You know, I still need to see Ginger Snaps. I've heard so many good things about this film, but I have never seen it before. You know, and I enjoyed Abigail just fine. Halloween Kills, it seems like the things that I like about it, I like more and more every time I watch it. And the things that I don't like about it, I'm just sort of like either make fun of just to make it easier. Like all the repeat dialogue, like everything Tommy says, it seems like he's doing the repeater from Super Troopers about half of the time in that movie, maybe even more. But yeah, guys, speaking of, I'm glad you brought up Halloween Kills, Raymond. Another plug for something that I'm doing this month that I've been originally, I came up with this idea as a pre-recorded video, but I think it would take so long to do. So I decided, fuck it, we'll do it live. And I'm going to do a series for the remainder of the month. Tuesdays, I'll be going live, and it's going to be how to make it better. And we're going to do the David Gordon Green Halloween trilogy. I'm going to take them movie by movie. So next Tuesday on, what is it, the 15th, I'm going to be covering H18, and I'm going to be just going through point by point the things that I would change and how those changes would, you know, propel the next film and all that. So we'll kind of go through, you know, I really enjoy the David Gordon Green Halloween trilogy, but I think one of the important things to be able to do as a fan is to don't become so attached to the things that you love that you can't just have like a sobering look at them, right? Like I really love those movies, including Ends. It's one of my favorite in the series. But I think that there are some flaws there. And I think there are some ways that maybe it could have gone a little bit smoother, been a bit more cohesive, and made a little bit more sense within that timeline that they were trying to build, piggybacking off the first film. So that'll be really cool. And then if you guys enjoy that kind of thing, like the how to make it better, that can be maybe once a month I can do a how to make it better live episode on a film that I really, really enjoy, but also have some ideas on, you know, what could make it even better. So hell yeah. Jamie watched Ginger Snaps just last night. It's a yearly watch for her. I've heard that it's so good. Where can I watch Ginger Snaps streaming? I'm curious to know, guys. Let's find out together. And knowing my luck, it's probably not anywhere. Peacock. Oh shit. I'm subscribed to Peacock. All right. So I can watch Ginger Snaps. Hell yeah. How I would fix Halloween Ends has been an idea living in my head and on paper for 2+ years now. Yeah, and I really enjoy it, but I do think it'll be really cool, Dean, because all the changes I set up from H18, they're going to pour over to Halloween Kills. So in my Halloween Kills, you know, how to make it better, we're going to, you know, operate under the assumption that all the things from Halloween 18 that I fixed are now in place. So it'll be really, it's going to sort of build. So by the time we're on Halloween Ends, like that might be kind of a long episode because there's going to be, we're going to be sort of going, you know, all the way back to H18 to really get into it. Ginger Snaps is Raymond's second favorite werewolf movie. Damn. And what's his number one? I knew it even before reading it. Yeah, it's got to be, that's got to be most people's number one, right? I would imagine. At least it's got to be top three for sure. And it's on Shudder. Okay, great. Ginger Snaps on Shudder and on Peacock. That's awesome. So I've got no excuse to not watch it. I haven't watched anything new this week yet, guys. I really want to check out the WNUF Halloween special. That's on the list there. I'm trying to think of what else. Oh, I do want to revisit Demons. Remember when we watched Demons here on the channel? We did it as a watch party. That was my very first time watching the movie. It was so colorful and surreal and, just had that beautiful Italian aesthetic. But I didn't really get to pay attention too much, to anything else. So I really want to rewatch that, or essentially have an actual first watch experience with Demons. So that'll be really cool to jump into that as well. And Dean, you're saying you basically rewrote the entire second half of Halloween Ends. Yeah, we will get into all of that because I do love the movie, but it certainly has some issues. And the folks that don't like Halloween Ends, I think they've got some pretty good points. Number one for Jamie is The Howling. She prefers The Grit. Yeah, that's a really good one too. I'm trying to think of how many others I've even seen. I like the old Universal monster movies. There's just a certain charm about them that I really enjoy, even if they're kind of slow and hokey. But yeah, The Howling, American Werewolf in London. That's awesome. That's the one. That is the one. Raymond says, I prefer Demons more than Demons 2. I still haven't checked out Demons 2, so I do need to watch both of those, but it'll start with the rewatching there of the original Demons. What is that, 1986, 87, something like that? But yeah, guys, I don't know what else y'all have going on this week. Let me know in the chat. I'm sort of torn on whether or not I should go and see Terrifier 3 and shoot a review. You guys know how I feel about doing reviews. I feel like everyone does such a great job with reviews. I don't even know if I should try to jump in on that territory some of the time. But I'm I could go see Terrifier 3 tomorrow night and come right home and shoot a review. I don't know. Let me know in the chat or in the comments or on social media or something like that. If you really want to see something like that from me, I could certainly put that together. And then, all I've got to do is figure out when the next members only stream is going to be. We've got to put something together for that. So look forward to a little community post from me, guys. And we can figure out a little hang with everyone here. So yeah, guys, what are we looking at? We've been going on for about 2 hours, 15 minutes here. I think this is a good spot to cap it off. I know sometimes I go the whole 3-hour route with Late Night with the Davey, but I think sometimes it's nice to just have a little bit of the night left. Absolutely. I got to get this one last chat though from Raymond Malabar here. I thought Ends was going to be an Allison vengeance story since he killed both her parents, her boyfriend and her best friend. Yeah, that's something that I hadn't even thought about, Raymond. Yeah, I think that there's definitely, they do sort of hint that something's up with Allison, but it doesn't ever fall into that kind of category to where she's actually, turned to violence because of what she's been through. That's an interesting little point that you bring up there. Hell yeah, Jamie is doing her best to plan a live stream of her own this Halloween season. That would be awesome, Jamie. We'd all love to see your return. I'll be there hanging out in the chat. Absolutely. So just let us know when you've got that cooking. Prince is going to be watching Odd Thomas, Constantine, the OG Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Orphan, Beetlejuice, Exhuma, and The Ring. All right. That's a good watch list. That's what you've watched so far. Is that what's up, Prince? And DA Max says heading to Spirit Halloween with my son to grab some new swag. Hell yeah. That, I've not been to Spirit yet this year because every time I go to Spirit, I spend way too much money and I'm trying not to do those things lately. So I've just been enjoying all the decorations and all the stuff we've purchased in previous years for sure. All right. Well, best of luck fitting all that into the schedule there for you, Prince. Yeah, guys, this has been really awesome. I'm really pumped about the guests that we've got coming up here. So just so you guys, for the folks who are new here, next week we've got Damien Maffei from Haunt and Strangers Pray at Night going to be on the show here. The week after that, we've got Matt from Mad Blood, who was just hanging out in the chat. And to close things out on, I believe it's the 29th. No, wait, it's the 30th. The day before on Halloween Eve, we've got Lee from Drum Dums coming to hang out with us on the channel. I'm really pumped for that. Especially those the last two in the month. So Matt and I are going to be taking a look at like historically like bad horror movies, but we're going to be looking at like positive reviews for bad horror movies. And then when Lee's on the channel, we're going to be taking a look at 1988, specifically that year in horror, and just how many amazing movies came out that year and how it sort of like reshaped, horror to close out the 80s. So really looking forward to that discussion. And I think that's maybe the route that we're going to kind of go here on Late Night with the Davey, where I bring on a guest, but we sort of pick a topic beforehand. So we can always catch up with them and what they're doing and all that kind of stuff. But it might just I think it'll propel the conversation in a nice direction throughout the chat. And then hopefully it's, just even more engaging for you guys in the audience, and something where you guys can get a little more involved. Speaking of getting more involved, before I say good night to everyone, I'm going to close out our poll. The question was, which horror icon, where did it go? It just disappeared. Where did the poll go? Which horror icon will be returning to the silver screen first? And I wish I could read it off to you guys, but it literally did disappear from the chat, so I can't even see it. I think Michael Myers won. Did anybody see what the heck happened here? What if I reload the screen? This is hilarious. I love when you guys are on the stream with me as I try to figure something out that just shows that I'm like old and decrepit. Okay, so here we go. I finally got it up. So guys, we had 63 votes. Thank you so much to everyone who participated in the vote. Michael Myers wins with 34%. Jason Voorhees in second place at 23%. Freddy Krueger right behind him at 22%. And Chucky at 19%. I am surprised, guys, because I think it's probably between Michael and Chucky there. I think Michael's going to be back by 2028 in the theater. I think Chucky could even be back by 2026 or 2027, because it sounds like that's what they're working on next for the Child's Play, is going to be, another movie and not a TV show or anything like that. So yeah, thank you guys so much for participating in that. Dean says it's always a lot of fun here. The engagement across the chat is fantastic. Yeah, man, a credit to you guys hanging out in the chat. This community is amazing. You guys fuel and propel everything we do here at the channel. The reason why I crammed October with a bunch of lives here on this stream and then collabs over on other people's channels is because I just love hanging out with you guys so much. And, it just feels like hanging with friends. It's amazing. So thank you so much. Really appreciate the comment there, Dean. And yeah, as someone who's relatively new, I just hope that continues to grow. You brought Wayne in. Now it's time to bring some other folks in. Yeah, I guess that's my last pitch, is sort of share this. If you're seeing something here on the channel that you really enjoy, I know that you've got somebody in your life, even if it's just another buddy that you hang out with on YouTube and other chats on lives, let them know about the channel. We're continuing to grow here. Like I said, we just crossed 1,100 subs, so that's really awesome. And yeah, we're just going to keep it up and press that gas pedal down. Jamie knocks it out of the park here. Don't forget to smash that like, subscribe to the channel, join the Death Squad. And if you're watching on the replay, leave a comment. Hell yeah. There we go. Prince showing some love to Jamie. Jamie sharing the link. That's awesome. I love it. Sub to WOMP Stomp. That's great. Their channel is just incredible. I hope you have fun checking out their content over their prints. If you guys have not seen the Never Hike Alone films, go over to WOMP Stomp Films right now and check those out. Link in the description below. And yeah, guys, that's going to wrap it up for me here on this edition of Late Night with the Davey. It's always a pleasure to kick it with you guys on Wednesday evenings. Really appreciate everyone for coming to hang out in the chat. Love all the subs, man. The channel members, you guys are amazing. We have 43 channel members. I think that's incredible, especially considering the sub count for the channel. So that goes to show how awesome you guys are, and that there's something about this community and what we're doing here that, you know, we're all passionate about and really enjoy. So thank you guys so much. Yeah, that is gonna wrap it up for me. I'm making sure I'm not forgetting anything else before we say good night, and I don't think I have. So guys, until next time, I've been and will continue being Davey Deathray. Take care.